we are ready, Madam Mayor.
We're ready? Okay, I'll go ahead and call this January 25th regular city council meeting to order. Before we stand for the pledge, let's see who we have. Did you want to check the Zoom or wait till we get to the...
We'll do it in roll call,
Okay,
if
we'll
that's
do it
all
in
right.
roll
Yep.
All right, so Chief, could you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now, Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll.
So tonight's roll call, we heard Casa Grande is first on the list, but she's having connection difficulties. DeMoss?
Here.
Cease?
Here.
Osenga?
Here.
McClure?
Here.
Baclan?
Here.
And Mayor Terry.
Yes.
You have a quorum.
Okay. So, I know that Councilmember Casagrande is trying to connect. So if you see that she is able to connect, just let us know, please. Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is citizen comments on any subject except those items scheduled for public hearing. And we do have a public hearing item scheduled. Is there anyone signed in, Madam Clerk?
Yes, we have just a few
Okay.
people. So the first one I'll call is Carol Griswold.
Hello, this is Carol.
Hi Carol, you are with City Council and you have 3 minutes for citizen comments.
Okay, can you hear me, please?
Yes.
Okay. Dear Council and Administration, I served on the Seward Special Ad Hoc Airport Advisory Committee with 9 other community members. Our recommendations for calendar year 2020 legislative priorities were adopted by PACCAB and Council, but were not included this year. Please add to Resolution 2021-009, State Legislative Priorities under B, Capital Projects. Request the Alaska Department of Transportation to repair and restore the existing runway 1331 in order to accommodate larger aircraft and provide effective disaster response. Please add to Resolution 2021-010, Federal Legislative Priorities A, Appropriations and Grants, appropriating funding for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to design and construct a flood damage control project to protect the airport runways and property from flooding. These long-term projects are still needed to resolve the continuing issues at the airport and need to remain on the priority list. I also hope you will amend and adopt substitute Resolution 2021-006, Consulting Services Contract. I shared the suggested amendments earlier as I only have 3 minutes to comment. Thank you for your consideration. Carol Griswold, inside city limits.
Thank you, Carol. Oop, I cut her off. Sorry. Next is, we'll call Becky Dunn. Hello? Hello?
Hello.
Hi, Becky, you're with City Council and you have 3 minutes for citizen comments.
Okay, I'm Becky Dunn, I'm the inside the city limits. I have a few comments about the road to and from Anchorage. We drove 35 miles an hour and nobody tried to pass, sometimes 30 miles an hour. So it really is bad, and I know we're aware of that and working on it, and I just wanted to confirm that. And the airport too is also a major concern, and I'm aware that City Council is going to write some letters, and I am thanking you guys for doing that and fully supporting that. The air is very unforgiving, I know firsthand, unfortunately. And when it comes to helicopters, it's even more unforgiving, especially when there's ice in the air. So, like they can't fly. So there are times literally when our road is down, and there are times when helicopters can't come and go. So it is extremely important to keep the airport runway clear. And I also am signed up to comment at the end, so if anybody has any comment to this that they want me to mention at the end, I can do that people that are signed up. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, and Madam Mayor, I did just get, apparently, Councilmember Casagrande has logged into the other teleconference line that we're not using tonight, so is there a way to resolve and get her on the phone, or?
She should
You know-
call in. If she can get on that, she should be able to know.
Okay, all right, I will let her know that. The next person is Bruce Jaffa. Hi Bruce, you are with City Council and you have 3 minutes for citizen comments.
Oh, I do? Okay, wow, I was trying to log into a different meeting, but, well, thank you, Brenda. Thank you for, calling me. I sent a letter to the city, I think that explained my position, my thoughts on the airport. I think, everyone is aware that there's been an effort to notify local users, and I've seen a number of back and forth letters from the clerk. I received a call from Ben Carpenter, who was also very interested in what was going on based on what he talked about with Manager Regis. I don't have the letter in front of me. I'm not going to try to read it, but suffice to say, DOT's position obviously is very challenging for the city. I think there's been some discussion in the past about cost sharing when the city had more money. Money is really the name of the game, I would guess. Even though the state of Alaska is rolling in money, nobody wants to seem to spend it on the important things. So I would suggest that we continue to talk to our representatives and senators. Senator McKitchie is keenly aware of the transportation issues and get them to recognize that the city is being ill-served by DOT. I can't put it any differently than that. I'm in the middle of the highway. I see what the DOT is doing to the Seward Highway. I don't see the airport as quite as often because I don't come into town that much, frankly, but I understand from the letters that I get from the clerk, it's a real problem. I think members of the council that were involved, the Council Lane and Mayor Terry, when we talk to DOT, we understand how difficult they are. They wanted to retain ownership, and with ownership is responsibility. And I don't think they're meeting their responsibility. I think that sums it up. If you look at my letter, I try to put it a little more succinctly. Maybe if we can do something and put pressure in the right place, I'd be happy to help.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, and last is a note from Walter Corrigan that I will read. My name is Walter Corrigan. I've been flying out of Seward Airport since 1993 when we moved here. I've flown for the Civil Air Patrol, commercially and as a private pilot. In the 23 years that I've been here, I've never seen the airport so badly maintained. The long runway is plowed, as is a small section of the north ramp. This technically means that the airport is open, quote unquote. However, the west ramp, where all of the airplanes are, has not been maintained at all. It is not possible to get airplanes out of there without great danger of damage to our airplanes. There is a single lane that has been poorly plowed along the west ramp, hopefully not by the state since it's so poorly done. That lane is dangerous even for automobiles. The state of Alaska owns the airport. Keeping the airport open for all users is the responsibility of the state, and they are shirking that responsibility. We have business at the airport that cannot operate without the ramp being suitably plowed. The excuse that this is a bad winter doesn't wash, as I remember many worse winter spells where the airport was kept properly and completely open. This is unsatisfactory, and I request that City Council provide whatever pressure they may to make this situation right. Those who were here when avalanches closed the roads out for 2 weeks, or when the '64 earthquake hit, know that the Seward Airport can quickly become our only reasonable way in and out. I respectfully ask for the help of our City Council in remedying this situation. And that is it, Madam Mayor.
And Madam Clerk, no one has their hand raised on Zoom.
There isn't, no hand up. Nope.
Okay, thank you very much. And I know, just my phone was telling me I was getting some alerts. Is Councilmember Casagrande able to connect?
We're still working on
Okay, thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda and consent agenda, and I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I move to approve the agenda and the consent agenda.
I second.
I'll second it.
Thank you. I'll just start off with a couple changes. I would like to add under 6 a C and have that be a city clerk report, city manager search update, and then the other reports and announcements that will subsequently be indicated as a D, as in dog. And then also under that, I'll strike the CARES Act funding and disbursement report. That will be on the next meeting. Are there any objections to those? Okay, I'll go to the Zoom first, and I'll start with Vice Mayor Baclan. Did you have any changes to the agenda or consent agenda?
Yes, I'd like to remove resolution 2021-008.
From
So
consent?
resolution 2021-009.
Okay.
Resolution 2021-010.
And those are, you're just removing them from the consent agenda, is that correct?
Yes.
And then did you have anything else?
Yes, resolution 2021-013.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease, did you have any changes to the agenda or consent agenda?
No.
Thank you. I'll look to the dais. Does anyone, Councilmember DeMoss?
I would like to remove resolution 2021-015.
015 from the consent agenda?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Do you have any other changes?
No.
Okay, and I'll just make sure that the remaining two.
And just one more,
Yes?
2021-016.
Okay. From the consent agenda?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Last call for the good of the order. Madam Clerk, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Voting on tonight's agenda and consent agenda. DeMoss,
Yes.
Baclan,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
no Casagrande yet?
She is on.
Oh, Casagrande?
Just got on.
Councilmember Casagrande, are you able to hear us now?
She has to unmute.
Councilmember Casagrande, are you able to unmute?
There, she just did.
Yes, I figured it out. Yes,
Great.
I am voting yes for the consent and agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry for the frustration. Thanks for getting on with us tonight. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
That's
See-
okay. How do I remute myself?
*6.
*6.
Okay.
Thank you.
Back to the agenda, Cease,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
and Mayor Terry.
Yes.
Your agenda is, and consent agenda is approved.
Great.
And approved on tonight's consent agenda It's the introduction of ordinance 2021-002, amending portions of Seward City Code, Chapter 3, Personnel, to adjust the pay scale cap and annual leave accrual rate as a result of the classification and compensation study conducted by GovHR USA LLC. This ordinance will come for public hearing and enactment on February 8th, 2021. And bear with me one moment. Take those out. Resolution 2021-011, requesting that Governor Dunleavy direct the Alaska Department of Transportation to maintain the state-owned airport located in Seward, Alaska in a timely manner to ensure safe winter operating conditions. Resolution 2021-012, authorizing the city manager to enter into an additional 5-year lease agreement with Chugach Regional Resources Commission for the operation of the Alutiiq Pride Shellfish Hatchery. Resolution 2021-014, supporting the continued development of the Alaska Long Trail from Seward to Fairbanks. And then also approved on tonight's agenda is the December 14th, 2020 City Council special meeting minutes, the January 11th, 2021 City Council special meeting minutes, the January 11th, 2021 City Council regular meeting minutes, and there's a non-objection to the renewal of liquor license number 3230 Restaurant Eating Place for Apollo Restaurant.
Great, thank you, Madam Clerk. We have no proclamations and awards, and then next on the agenda is the city manager's report starting on page 4, and I'll turn it over to Assistant City Manager.
Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Purchase orders, so we had a $11,135 purchase order for the business license permit and inspection portal. That's per resolution 2020-067. We had an $8,950 purchase in connection with the recodification. That's tied to resolution 2020-040. The fire department had a generator issue that needed to be remedied. It required replacement of the PCB board assembly, and that was for $5,365. In the police department, $8,975 for some unsafe and broken furniture for the squad room, the lieutenant/sergeant room, and the administrative offices. $5,500 for Unicode online services. $14,196 for the city calendar advertising. That's per resolution 2019-117. And last but not least, $5,840 for a misplaced monument for Mary Lowell. Just to highlight on that one, so Councilmember McClure and myself have been in conversation, and we'll be planning a rededication ceremony. ETA, we're looking at about June, and I just want to say on behalf of the city that we apologize that that went missing and look forward to re-commemorating that in the near future. One more item, there's been a lot of discussion in the past few weeks as well as this evening about DOT's lack of support. Norm received a phone call from leadership at DOT from the Commissioner's office last week, I believe, requesting a meeting with Norm and myself, which will be taking place later on this week, and we'll provide council and the community an update at the conclusion of that. We take this as a positive olive branch that they want to acknowledge and remedy the issues that are taking place. So again, we'll keep the community and council apprised of the outcome of that meeting, and this is an issue that both Norm and myself have spent a significant amount of time on, and will continue to do so until we see an improvement through any mechanism that's available to us. I'm going to turn it over to Corey and Rob, and then after that Doug is going to highlight a couple things. So Corey?
Thank you. Mayor Terry and council members, this is probably going to be the last time talking to you as the interim manager of the electric utility, and a few things I wanted to finish up from ICMR, and just a few comments about my being here and how proud I am of having been part of this electric utility in this city of Seward. We've got an update on the utility costs for the rail belt, and I've been kind of passing these out. For those who are not here present to get the handout, we'll have it on the CMR for the next meeting, so you'll be able to see it. But with a drop in the cost of power, which is a pass-through from the Chugach Electric, Seward now stands as the lowest cost utility in the rail belt, measured by a number of different factors, though one is a typical residential member, which is 600 kilowatt hours. That member's monthly bill is now, with the lower COPA, $114.49. Chugach is next with a $118.04 bill, and Homer Electric, the rates are high enough that their bill, that same member's bill, would be $167.45. You know, this is, you can see from the utility charge, which is the cost of operating utility, with the winter rates that are in place, Seward is by far the cheapest utility. And I think that's a tribute to all the work that's done by everybody at the utility and trying to keep costs down and everything reasonable. I might argue and tell you that you're a little too far down. We need to do some work and make sure the system is resilient and reliable, but it's very impressive. Even your winter rates that are in the tens, just I think touching 11 cents, are still cheaper than any other utility in the rail belt. So this is a message that needs to get out because it's a really important message. At the last meeting, there was discussion. I was asked about line losses, and I provided you some information in your packet. The line losses were calculated, and they've ranged over the last 5 years in high 10% down to 7.8%. In the utility discussion of line losses, it's usually thought about the loss of power coming across transmission and distribution lines. Power, and from this standpoint, though, I think what Councilmember Casagrande was talking about is the difference between the Chugach bill and what we bill our customers out. So there can be some other examples of things that might be losses as a result of that, including the fact that we have unmetered streetlights that is part of the electric utilities purpose and function under the city code. There can be power theft, definitely. There can be billing errors, and there can be transformers that aren't properly sized, so they use more power and it doesn't get billed to anyone. The transformer itself is a part of the system, uses the power. And there can be power factor customers who have large motors and things like that that aren't paying a power factor, and that's part of a loss as well. So anyway, I was pleased to see those, and the analysis shows that they weren't 15% and that they've dropped. I think we've talked about that. We think just some better usage of transformers in our system, and also we've been converting the street lights from some of the sodium lights to the LED lights, and so the street light load should be going down. Another good indication of improvements at the utility system here. So you know, then I'm going to. So the other thing on line losses I've got, I'm just going to pass. I got two of them here, so I was going to pass them on each side if I can approach here, and Dustin can pass that down, and Steven. Try not to. Just to kind of show you, this is from Golden Valley Electric on their line losses over 5 years, and they go from 7% down to 5%. And I happen to know that that drop was a result of buying less power from Chugach Electric and Municipality Power, and with Healy 2 starting up. So there was less transmission loss, and that's why I got closer down just to the distribution loss. So it kind of shows too with us at 7.8, yeah, it's high. Maybe we can make some progress and do some better things, but we're kind of within an acceptable range, I would suggest, within the rail belt. So anyway, I think I'll be able to take any questions on that. And then before I turn it off to Rob, I just want to again thank everyone here for the opportunity. I've been here for the last 7 months. I've been embraced by this community. People have been very kind. I feel like I've put a lot of good things into the utility. I feel proud of what I've done. I think you should be proud of this utility. I think of you as a board of directors of a $12 million utility. It's an important job, and I think you embrace it. I hope we can give you more training. I hope utility can give you more insight and information about how to run a utility. I know you've learned a lot and you know a lot, but there's always more to learn. So I've been proud to be part of the staff here at Seward. I think they work very hard, and I kind of, as you go forward, think you should invest in your staff and in the infrastructure at this utility. It's worth it. It's a really, really good system, and the city of Seward should be proud of it. So with that, I want to turn it over to Rob, and it's not goodbye, hopefully we'll see you around, and anyway, thank you again.
Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, Corey. Good evening. I just want to give a brief update, kind of piggyback on what Corey was talking about regarding our demand meter program. As stated in the city manager's report, we recently lowered the threshold from 7,500 kilowatt hours per month down to 2,000 kilowatt hours per month. In that process, we identified just under 200 customers that meet that threshold. And the good news is, most of those were changed out 3 years ago when the program started. With the new threshold, we now have an additional 78 customers that have been identified to receive these new the demand meters. The switch outs for those customers actually began last week, and we're about halfway through that process, and we anticipate being done with those change outs within a week or two, probably 2 weeks. So that is it. I'll be glad to take any questions.
I'll check in with the phone first. Vice Mayor Baclan, did you have any questions for the electric utility?
Yes, so 78 more demand meters that are, or 78 total that need to be switched out. Do we have enough to do that? And did we still have more demand meters on order that we can cancel, or what's going on with the inventory of the demand meters?
We actually, as we began this process for the 78 meters, we had 128 of those meters in the warehouse. As we've been doing the switch outs, we have run across a few meters where the specs may not match up. So there may be some meters that we need to order in after we go through this. But if we don't go through that process, we do have enough inventory in stock to get to 78.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a follow-up question, Councilmember Baclan? I'm sorry, Vice Mayor.
I just wanted to say thank you to Corey. I didn't get to say that, but thank you, Corey, for all of your hard work that you've put in so far. The change has been noticeable in management there, and I appreciate all the things that you have tried to implement so far for us. So thank you, and we will see you soon.
Councilmember Cease, did you have any questions specific to the electric utility?
No, I don't, but I do want to thank Corey for all his improvements that he has made into our electrical department.
Thank you.
And
Councilmember.
I don't have any.
Thank you. Councilmember Casagrande, did you have any questions for the electric utility?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'll look to the dais really quick. Okay.
Oh, I do.
Yes.
Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said no, thank you. My mistake. Go ahead.
So I couldn't hear Corey. He said that our line loss was blank percent, and we've gotten it down to 7.8%. What was it before?
So on page 18 in the packet, it looks like in 2016, do you have that in front of you, or should I read it?
I know if you have it, that'd be
Okay,
great.
so on page 18, 2016, it was 10.1%, 2017, it was 11%, 2018, it was 9.9%, 2019, it was 8.9%, and then from January to September of this year, it's at 7.8%.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. And my follow-up question is to Corey. Did you receive the TrueGatch bills and the kilowatt hours read on ground from our department, or did you have to go to TrueGatch to get the bill?
The analysis that was provided to you in the CMR came from the bills that had been provided to Mike Hubbard as part of his rate study analysis. So he had all the data from what Chugach had billed us, and then from what we had billed our customers. So that's the data that was done in the spreadsheet that's in the CMR. We have gotten the data from Chugach. It has just come in. I asked them to do it on the 15th, by the 15th of the month. And we're getting that to Mike Hubbard. He is going to update that analysis. So you'll be able to get that based on the 15th to the 15th. But I do not expect it to change, but we will double check and make sure that it's consistent.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Casagrande, since I preempted you, I'll just be real short. Did you have any follow-up questions? Sorry.
I did not, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now I'll look to the dais and the Councilmember DeVos.
I just have a couple questions for Corey or Rob. About the transmission line loss, I am still kind of trying to figure that out, and I'm wondering, when you say that there is, say, 7.8% line loss, do you know what that is, what specifically that loss is coming from? As you say, it can come from a variety of sources.
Not really. It could be any number of factors. You could have just normal line losses for the distance that the power is being carried. You can also have issues with power factors where motors and engines in some of our plants and other operating facilities are not running as efficiently as they should. So there's a number of factors we would have to look at to try to narrow that down.
And then there was one comment about utility theft that could be a reason, and could you clarify how that would happen?
You want to do that? You've done
your research.
So, well, you know, there are people that will hook into our power lines and transformers and bring power to their houses and bypass the meters. There are people that will bypass meters. And I kind of thought, you know, when we put the new meters in 3 years ago, the line loss, and I'm calling them line losses, but the difference between what we get billed from Chugach and what we get here and bill out in Seward has dropped. And I thought, well, maybe some of those new meters have captured more people that were stealing power before that, power theft. And we have ongoing issues with power theft, and we need to have a good program of power theft investigation. But that is a difference. You know, the line losses that occur on transmission lines and distribution lines is just a natural function of electricity as it travels across distances. You lose part of the energy. The more the lines are loaded up, in other words, the more you fully utilize the line, the more losses occur. And that's a big issue for losses from Bradley Lake, because those lines are so small. We're trying to bring as much power from the Bradley Lake Hydro as possible as they come all the way from Homer and the Chugach territory then to us. Those losses from we call it the SQ line and the Soldotna segment line, have a lot of losses if they run Bradley Lake at high levels. So that's why you'll sometimes hear in the rail belt that we want to improve those lines, build bigger lines, because then the losses drop. And those losses are significant. There was a question, and I didn't address it, about in dollars and cents, what do these line losses mean to our utility? And I kind of put it in a rough sense, but somewhere around $60,000 to $90,000 a year, these line losses. What we have to pay Chugach that we don't bill our customers.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Did you have a follow-up question?
I don't, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to make one last comment and just say I'm looking forward to actually working with this council and you, Mayor. And I also want to turn and thank Corey for his work. We've been working together over the past 2 weeks, and his help and assistance have been exceptional. So hopefully it'll make for a smooth transition.
Thank you very much, sir. So I'll turn it back over to administration. Did you have, you had something else?
Director Schessler is going to speak for a moment.
Tough act to follow. Tag team on those guys. I just had a couple of things I forgot to put in my CMR about the water meter inventory that we were doing and we are doing. It's ongoing. We're definitely getting more of them, but we're sure to the point of hitting a lot of the closed businesses right now. we'll keep going, we'll keep working on those, and then start working on some of the institutional ones that have more than one, more than 5 meters. We'll start getting those ones knocked out. So any of them that are open, we'll start getting all those and keep them going. But it'll take a little bit here. We might be into the spring before we get a lot of these folks that are closed right now. So, but we'll get there. We'll get them all squared away. And we're working, secondly, on the rate study. And that's later on your the packet to do a work session. So hopefully that we can get going on that, and we'll provide you with more information and everything updated, and excited about getting that all going and changing a little bit more to the meters, making it a more equitable and just easy to understand tariff, way more than it was with all the ERUs that spread every direction. So we're looking forward to that. And then some exciting news. We had a big meeting with Army Corps today. We've gone through, first was the alternatives milestone, and what they call these are milestones, and these are big deals on the Army Corps that they have to go through district-wide, goes through the region, goes through the national, the whole deal. We went through the alternatives, then we went through what they called the TSP, the tentatively selected plan. That was what we just got a month or two ago, is what they were going through. The next really big one is one of the biggest milestones, is called the agency decision milestone. We're on the phone with 29 other folks from Washington, D.C., Hawaii, all across the whole, we were just kind of a little participant in it. They allowed us to kind of give our little bit on a page, but listen in on their whole group dynamics of what goes through and how they have to get there, and does that meet this requirement, that requirement. And we passed the ADM today, which was just huge to get past that milestone. Looking forward, we're looking to try to finish it up, hopefully by, I think they have to have it in May 12th to get to their next spot. They talked about a 1-month extension or something, but they're trying to get it in with that. From there, that's where it goes to the big national, and goes into Army Corps for them to recommend to federally sponsor. I mean, the project is there, but they have to recommend it and agree with the project. So.
And just for the public, that's with the Lowell Canyon Tunnel.
Yes, this is all the Lowell Canyon Tunnel. Thank you. And that's for a second tunnel, which is an 18-foot tunnel. There was talk today about some different sizing and how, what, and so there was a lot of discussion today. It was about a 2-hour meeting, but in the end, the top guys, gals approved it and sent us for the next step. So that was really good.
That is good news.
But that's one thing as we go through those, the plans on your priorities. That's why we have that in there, especially the federal. Once we get to that level where it's set, we got this project, we still don't have money for it. It's 100% federally funded, right? They pay for the project, but there's no funds right now. Now we go through that whole thing with our lobbyists, our legislatures pushing it. It's been on the list for a long, long time. Most of the folks down in Washington, although there's a lot of new faces, know about it, so we hope the delegations are able to push that and get some funding to get that thing done. It's a long time coming. And I think those were the 3 things I had, and I'd be glad to answer questions if anybody has them.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So I know that the sewer lagoon, we're still waiting on those final repairs, and I know it was COVID and then the weather, so where are we at right now?
Right now, we have to wait till just spring. When we got hit with the COVID, it was the same time. It wasn't us that got hit, it was the contractor.
Yeah.
We had him scheduled to come down, all perfect, all ready to go. He's got his crew ready to come down on Monday, and over the weekend, they all got lined out. Within that 2-week waiting period, we got snow and ice. And we're not able to thaw out that side of the lagoon that we drained down almost to the bottom. That's now frozen, and we can't slip line those pipes. They're in the water right there. And it's come up a little bit, so we're just waiting it out, and we're gonna have to wait until spring here to finish that. And he knows all about it, the contractor. They're ready to go as soon as we give them a good report that it's thought out and ready, and we'll get it repaired and going.
But half of it is functional.
Yeah, and it's designed to function on the one half. Yep.
Okay. I'll go to folks on the line. Vice Mayor Buckland, did you have any questions?
No, not for Doug, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease, did you have any questions for Doug?
No, I don't, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Casagrande?
Not for Doug, thank you.
Thank you. I'll look to the dais. Any questions? Okay, thank you. And
That's
I'll
all we
turn-
have.
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
I'll go back to the phones, and I'm sorry for the folks. If I just don't call on those guys, I'll forget. So thanks for letting me call on them first. Vice Mayor Baclon, did you have any questions in general for administration under the manager's report?
Yes, I did. There's been a lot of talk recently on Facebook about the clearing of Second Lake. Is Tyler available tonight? I can't see the room, so I don't know.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Tyler.
Hello.
So I just had a question, and maybe you could explain it to the public a little bit better, because there's a lot of questions about. I guess the main question would be, what would be the cost or the controls that we would have to put in place to make Second Lake clearing and maintenance possible for the public?
Bottom line, it'd be more reliable staffing, which means we need an additional full-time park, not an additional, I mean, we need one full-time park maintenance worker. We currently only have one full-time park maintenance employee, and that is the supervisor. We have found ourselves in instances in the past, and before my tenure as well, where that is the only person who is here during the winter time. Combination of factors feed into that. Our seasonal staff, one person resigns, another person gets another job. It just happens to be an overlap where that happens to be only a person for, could be up to several weeks at a time. And some of the workload responsibilities that we have is also clearing the parking lots, the sidewalks, in and around City Hall, around the annex buildings over here, and tons of sidewalks all across town. So that's another core responsibility that we have to do, and that snow clearing and sanding can take up to a day and a half, especially after heavy snow. And so the requirements that are required to go out to the lake several times a week to conduct ice thickness testing, and this is also key to air temperatures, and we all know that air temperature here is it's right in that zone where especially the latest research, winter drownings increase exponentially in regions with warmer winter air temperatures near 32 degrees, especially in the 23 to 32 degree range. So that's what would be required, and we did not make this decision lightly, but we take the risk of drowning and severe injury very seriously, and if we don't think we can provide those controls on a consistent basis, then unfortunately we just can't offer that service at this time. But I know this is a activity that's very near and dear to the public.
Can I ask, do you mind if I ask a follow-up? So I'm actually encouraged to hear you say "at this time," because the way I'm reading it in the city manager's report was a hard stop. But it sounds like that if we have adequate staffing and the weather conditions are conducive, then that could start up again.
Correct. I think the operative, I'm sorry, Mayor and Vice Mayor addressed earlier. Of the policy requirements that would be required to do this, we can do anything once. We can go down to the lake anytime and do it once. The problem is that we have to be able to provide the service without fail. And the problem is once you start providing a service like that and you encourage people to come to an area or a facility, you start priming people psychologically to frequent, and that's fine if you can provide that service on a consistent basis. I think the closest analogy would be like, what if we had a swimming pool, but then the lifeguard was there 90% of the time, at 10% of the time? Would that be acceptable anywhere? That wouldn't be acceptable anywhere. No one would accept that standard. So right now, I think what it gets hard to kind of get into some of the nuance, because turnover rate, other workload priorities, and I don't mean those to be excuses, I'm just trying to give more insight to some of the additional risk factors that we take into account when we do an assessment. We just need that consistency. And what I've seen and in other areas as well is the number one thing I feel like we're missing is that park maintenance worker. And this happens in the summertime too. We get pressed for doing cleanup in other areas when things ramp up and there's just a shortage of staff, and we just seem to be missing that one key personnel.
Do you have a comment?
I just wanted you to comment on a meeting or so ago, you mentioned potentially preparing an ice rink at the new basketball court across from the resort. Could you comment on what the status of that is?
Yes, Councilman. So we have the sheet liner and the wood framing for the artificial rink is on order. Should hopefully be here within the next 2 weeks. And then we've already reached out to the fire department about the wastewater, about using the hydrants to flood the area. So all I would emphasize is it's an artificial rink. We've looked at a bunch of different designs, potential layouts, design options. I would emphasize that it's experimental and not like we'll just be up and fully operating and everyone come out here. As everyone I know is aware, it's the weather conditions are challenging. So what we'd like to do this season is try to test various configurations to see if there's an optimal configuration that would allow for an artificial ice rink, and that would dramatically, that would eliminate the risk of drowning.
But I think the depth on that second lake is like 18 inches. Like, it's not a very deep lake.
It's marshy.
It's barely a lake. So, I mean, I don't know how that enters.
I have a follow-up.
Can I ask one more question? So, with Second Lake Park, do you guys do any maintenance on the trails up there?
We do.
Okay, I mean, during the winter time, is there any sanding or anything? I'm just curious more than anything.
More just on an as-needed basis.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Baclan, I have Councilmember Demas, and then I'll go to the phone. Go ahead, Councilmember Demas.
Yeah, I just have a few questions. Thanks, Tyler. I'm glad that you're speaking because I received a lot of letters today and a lot of concerns. I think that I think that people feel really strongly about Second Lake, and I think that at first the reason was because the attorney said that there were some liability issues, but now we're hearing that it's staffing issues. So I'd like to find out specifically what the problem is, because I think that there's a lot of people that want Second Lake to happen, and we've done it for so many years. I can't imagine what has changed so much that we can't do it now. And also Mayor Terry made a really good point. The lake isn't deeper than 18 inches. I don't see how the skate park is any less of a liability than Second Lake. So I think this needs to be explored more and really looked at, because it's a really big thing that we're taking away from our community that doesn't have a lot of things like this in the winter, and it's a big bummer. So that's where I stand.
Thanks for your patience, Vice Mayor Baclan.
I guess my question is, if it's a staffing issue and we're creating an artificial ice skating rink, what's the difference with clearing an artificial ice rink there and having another, that I don't get, one. Two, the second part is we have maintained this for a long time. I don't know what the specifics are with staffing, even seasonal staffing, I think, might be a solution. But how much are we paying to make an artificial skating rink, and what is the difference between hiring somebody seasonal part-time to take care of that? So I don't understand. It doesn't really make sense on the staffing part there.
So to your first question, Vice Mayor, the artificial rink in summer, it eliminates the risk of drowning. And so you can have more intermittent maintenance or less frequent maintenance or upkeep on that. This is all for the cost of under $1,000 to set this up. We intentionally pursued we wanted to do this as an inexpensive experiment. We don't want to, you can definitely go way down the rabbit hole in terms of investing money on artificial ice rinks, but from a cost benefit ratio, we want to make sure that it's something that can be maintained in Seward's dynamic weather conditions. The question about staffing resources, so like most seasonal workforces, one of the major challenges is turnover, and when I've seen it plenty of times, and since my time here and in other positions where you employ a large seasonal workforce, where as soon as they have a better opportunity comes along, there's no loyalty. I mean, it's just on the face of it. Just when people have full-time year-round jobs, you get to retain not only that skill set, but their experience and then their institutional knowledge of what goes on. So that's why I would advocate for a full-time park maintenance worker position and how that can make a fundamental change to some of our operations.
Great, thank you.
And to the question of liability, of the issue that was raised earlier, so I just want to stress that while the issue of liability actually arises during the risk management process, that is never our foremost concern. Our focus is on responsibility, and that means conducting a thorough and unbiased risk assessment. And I know we've received a lot of comments of, we've done this, for X amount of years, and we understand. We would not intentionally want to invite scorn, or negative feedback into our lives. That's not what we're looking for as a department. We love getting people outside to play. Just this weekend, family soccer night, Friday night, RC car race event. Yesterday, on Saturday, carpool movie night last Friday. We want more wintertime programming. Getting into, there's issues in normalcy bias that people underestimate the risk involved just because something hasn't happened for an extended period of time doesn't mean it can't happen. And we have had reported we know of reported instances of people falling through the ice around the edges. I can tell you that the ice conditions, and I think this is important to stress for the public to hear, the standard of care, if the city were to actually continue offering this service, frankly, the standard of care just wasn't there before. The actual standard of care, the lake would be formally closed entirely to the public more often than not if we were to continue offering this service, because the ice thickness and air temperature conditions required to operate it are rarely there. So I just want to make sure everyone understands that.
Great, thank you. That's a good point, thank you. Vice Mayor Bacon, did you have any other comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think there's a lot of people that feel very passionate about it. Maybe reaching out to some of the nonprofit organizations. They might want to set up like a volunteer schedule. I don't know if that's possible. I know there's people who volunteer to in Parks and Rec to do like the climbing wall and things when they have training or specialties in there. But maybe reaching out might help.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease, did you have any comments?
No, I don't.
Councilmember Casagrande?
No.
Okay, thank you, Tyler. So I'll just check on the line. Are there any other questions for administration? Councilmember Casagrande, I'll start with you. Councilmember Cease, did you have any other questions for administration?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Bacon, did you have any other comments or questions for administration under the manager's report?
No, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll check back one more time with Councilmember Casagrande.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, yes.
Okay.
you have a question for administration if this is the appropriate time to ask it?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm just wondering, I thought that after our last meeting that there was going to be an RFP for the forensic audit in this packet, and I have just literally got my phone working and got on a computer today. Everything crashed for the last week for me, so I'm sorry if we received something, but I'm just wondering why we don't have that.
Administration?
Okay, so a couple items that were talked about, I think under new business 5 and 8 last time, we're addressing line loss, which unless there's more additional information, hopefully the information that's been provided will rectify that inquiry. On page 11, the second to last bullet point, so National Metering replaced all the meters 3 years ago. They generated pictures, GPS, and documentation of all the meters. Two things, due to the size of the file itself, and then just for confidentiality purposes, we didn't want to provide that in the packet, but if a member of the council wants the access to the inventory, we can either set up a secure digital Dropbox to allow access, or you can swing by the utility desk and we can provide access. So, and then Doug and Corey and Rob mentioned, we've got some in-process stuff that we're working on to address some of the concerns that were talked about. With regards to the forensic audit, it's the intention of administration to conduct a work session at 6 p.m. on the 22nd to go through the RFP. We'll have the draft RFP, and we want to take the time to define the scope of what this body would like to see take place in that RFP before we go out to bid. We did spend a considerable amount of time with Grant Todd, our CPA with Altman Rogers, as well as Brooks, the city attorney, this past Tuesday. Norm, myself, Corey, Sam, Rob, etc. So we will have a draft RFP for this body, and we'd like to take an hour just to go through that and, like I said, just define the scope so that we can ensure that the product that we put forward and when we go out to bid aligns with the vision that this body would like to see take place. So a lot of work's going on to address those concerns, and we look forward to moving down the road on that.
Did you have a follow-up question, Councilmember Casagrande?
No, I don't think so. Just more of a comment that I guess I just want to understand why it didn't just go out for RFP, because unless somebody can correct me, I didn't think that's what we were instructing administration. I thought we were saying go out for RFP, not bring it back, and we had like a 10-minute conversation about that.
So maybe administration, you can talk more about, I know that you attempted to do that, and then if you could talk more about what you were hearing back from the audit firm.
Yeah, so thanks for the question. So we had enlisted the assistance of our CPA, Grant Todd, with Altman Rogers, just to garner feedback. And like I said, in defining the scope, and we wanted to build an RFP that met the intent statement that was listed. And Altman Rogers had some concerns that, a couple things. One, we need to look at sample sizes. We need to look at delineating between items that an audit firm that's positioned to do traditional, either what they call an agreed upon procedure, so AUP audit, or if this body wants to see a forensic audit. Those are just a couple examples, but it was our CPA's guidance to us that we put together a draft and then bring those back and then kind of work through any particular concerns. Because like I said, the intent is to do this in a quality fashion. I guess the thing I would tell this body is that it's administration's goal to do this in a quality fashion that puts the concerns that have, it sounds like, been taking place for a number of years to bed. We want to do it in the right manner, and it's worth taking a couple weeks to put together that RFP in a fashion that addresses those specific concerns, and also for this body to have an opportunity to weigh in. And like I said, I really want to stress the word defining the scope of what exactly we want, because based on the feedback that we received from the CPA, his concerns were that we should probably just dig down and just do some fact finding before we proceed further, so that we can make sure that whatever takes place is in line with the vision that council directed administration to go forward with. I hope that answers your question.
Councilmember Casagrande, did you have a follow-up?
No, that's okay. I can call administration at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just check with Vice Mayor Buckland. Did you have any questions surrounding that topic?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease?
No, I think Risky covered it pretty good. We'll go later to the administration about it.
Great. Anyone on the dais? Yes, Councilmember Demas.
Thank you, Stephen, for your explanation and all your work on that. I was under the impression that the direction that we gave and the votes that we all voted on was to put out for RFP on this. So that's what I was expecting as well. And then my idea of that, I know that you spoke with our current audit firm, but that could be potentially one of the people that bid on it, correct?
Correct.
So I don't know why we're limiting ourselves to one audit firm and getting their opinion when we asked for an RFP to get several audit firms. And at that point, I would think they would come back to us and say, this is what we can do. We need more from you on this. And then maybe at that point, we have a work session and really, if needed, get more specific. I'm not necessarily opposed to the way you did it, but it wasn't how, I guess, the direction that we gave and what we voted on and agreed on. So that's where I stand.
Did you have an answer for that, or?
No, I appreciate Councilmember Demas's question there, and I guess the only response I would have was, I'm not a CPA. We don't have a CPA on staff currently, and so I just want to reiterate, there's no desire to delay, there's no desire to not proceed. We want to emphasize the quality of this. I mean, we're talking about looking at potentially 3 years of utility bills, and we want to do that in a way that does it exactly how this council wants to go forward. And so after we received the direction, I set up a meeting with our city attorney and with our CPA, and they certainly can, but I guess I would share with you that Grant's comment, and I don't know if Sam wants to add to this, but Grant's comment was Altman Rogers would love to participate, but based on the information that was provided in the intent statement after the last meeting, he said that if their firm would receive an RFP based on the intent statement, that they would politely decline it because they wouldn't be in a position to address all the items, and they also wouldn't have enough information to adequately assess whether they could fulfill the requirements in the RFP, and there was some concerns about the degree of ambiguity in there. So, I don't know, if you want to add to that, Sam?
I covered it.
Okay.
Through the mayor, I understand what you're saying, and I guess the only difference is that the point was that the RFP should have gone out, so we could have had 3 audit firms come back and say, not just Altman and Rogers saying what they would do and that they would politely decline. Maybe another audit firm would come and say, we can offer you this, this, and that, and I think that's the point of an RFP.
So I guess from my point of view, running RFPs before, what would happen in the RFP process is then you would have firms come back with a list of clarifications and questions. So during that process, there could be questions that would potentially have to come back to us anyways. So I mean, I 100% agree that what our direction was to go out for that RFP, but I also understand, you know, we don't want to put out an RFP that doesn't give firms enough information to even bid on something.
Sure, I agree.
Yeah, so I don't know that I'm 100% happy, but I can understand the reasoning behind it.
That's me as well.
And I completely understand where you're coming from as well. I think Grant's point to us was they wouldn't have even asked follow-up questions. They would have believed that the breadth of what we were describing was so ambiguous that they would have said, we don't believe we're in a position to even like counter or go back and address those concerns. So that was his point back to me, was that it would be better to define the scope and then go forward so that we could have, because as it was, he was concerned that there wouldn't be a firm, for sure, he told me, in the state of Alaska that would be in a position to address all the concerns that we laid out. So.
One more question through the mayor.
Yep.
Can we put this out to bid outside of the state of Alaska, or is this just within the state of Alaska?
For sure we can.
Okay.
But just Grant's, the reason I share that was Grant's point was he wasn't aware of a firm that would be in a position to address the concerns as they were written in there. So he just wanted to make sure that we actually did receive responses that we could go back to. And, you know, we definitely don't want to put out an RFP that's not even going to receive any bids.
Right.
So then, my question is, you don't need us to set that work session, you're gonna make sure that that work session is set?
Correct. So at the meeting on the 8th, administration will be requesting a work session at 6 p.m. on the subsequent meeting, which is on the 22nd.
All right.
And I appreciate that.
Yes.
Yeah,
thank you.
no, good, good points. So we're an hour in, let's go to, unless there's anyone that interrupts me, go to the city manager's report. I'm sorry, city clerk report on the city manager search. Madam Clerk.
Yes.
Oh, Councilmember Casagrande.
I'm sorry, I think what I just heard is that the intention is that we're gonna have a work session to discuss the RFP on February 22nd. So instead of having already out, we're talking another month.
Unless we'd like to set an earlier date, which is fine.
As soon as
I just know we have a
possible.
work session already on the 8th for the rate study.
What time is that work session on the 8th?
It hasn't been set yet. It's on the agenda. But it was proposed to be 5:30, I think. It is requested to be at 5 or 5:30.
That's the proposal right now, is the 22nd.
Ask a question. So what you're asking for, to have a work session, to have information from us to define more? Is that what, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out what we're trying to get at with this work session.
So we'll be bringing an RFP to this body, and if there's any changes, modifications, or amendments that council would like to see take place, we'll work through that process, and then we'll take it out to bid, and then we'll bring it back.
So not the same RFP that you presented to Altman or CPAs?
So we provided the intent statement that was provided to administration as part of, I forget, new business item 8 from our last meeting. We provided them that guidance that council provided to administration.
So the work session on the 22nd will be,
We'll have an RFP for this body to review.
so we're, I guess I'm not understanding, we're putting time and effort into making an RFP that may not fit what we're trying to get. I guess I'm not understanding. We're gonna have a work session after an RFP's already been.
So we're gonna craft an RFP, and we've solicited the guidance, input, and participation of the city attorney and also Altman Rogers to help us build that RFP. And then we're gonna bring that back so that council can review it, and if there's any changes that any member of city council would like to make, then we'll make those changes before we go after
Thank you.
bid.
I understand now, thank you.
So to Councilmember Casagrande, I mean, the other option to this body is to tell the administration to move forward with, you know, whatever they want to move forward with based on their understanding. And so, you know, I would say to that, then we can't cry foul after the fact. So, Vice Mayor Buckland, did you have any comments regarding that?
Yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying there, Terry. I just feel that that was not the direction given. So that changes the vote that was made, if that's what's happening.
Okay. I mean, at some level, I would rather us put out a good product that meets our needs. But if we just want to, I mean, I also agree with everyone else. We told the administration to put out an RFP. If we're going to be happy with the RFP that goes out, I want it memorialized that everyone's going to be happy with it. Councilmember Demas?
I would think that after we put the RFP out and we get the bids in, then couldn't we reconvene, have our work session, and we can, I'm sure, work out final details with the auditing firm at that point on what we want and what, come to terms.
So then the problem becomes, then we're negotiating in public after
Gotcha.
someone's put in a monetary bid.
Okay.
So, once you change the scope of something that you've gone out to bid for, then they have you as the successful proposer and they can put in the change order at their rate.
Right.
Councilmember Casagrande, what would be your preference?
So my preference would be what?
You broke up just a little bit, so we'll let you start over.
Okay.
Darn it. We're losing you, too bad. So I'll check with the dais first. Councilmember McClure, what would be your preference?
I would just go along with what the administration said and do it have a work session on the 22nd where we can tweak what they come forward with. I don't see that 2 weeks is going to make that big of a difference in what's being proposed, and then we'll have the product that we want.
Councilmember Osenko?
And I would agree with Councilmember McClure. I think we should wait and get a good product. I don't see what, I think it's counterproductive to throw something out there and then have someone come back and change it, and then we have to come and it just gets go back and forth instead of just do it right the first time and have it, or what we want the first time, and then hopefully something comes back.
Councilmember Demas, what would be your preference?
I can get on board with that as well.
Okay. Vice Mayor Baclawn, what would be your preference?
I'm fine with waiting. I think that this is I'm fine with waiting.
Okay, Councilmember Cease, what would be your preference?
Okay, explain to me again why we can't have it on the 8th of February?
Well, we were planning a different work session, but we could switch those. We had the water, that was a proposal for the water sewer study work session.
Well, I'd rather have the one with the audit on the 8th.
Could we do that? Do we know?
Doug, you mind if I ask?
Is there any way we can have it on, maybe not a council night instead of on the 8th, if you're gonna switch, to bump us another 2 weeks, starts to cut into that implementation time that we're trying to get this passed and then implemented totally by April 15th. And so we're trying to get this through. We tried to give a lot of time in there. I have a little bit of leeway, but to go 2 weeks out, if we could do it on a Wednesday or a
Councilmember
Thursday
Cease,
or
were you
something.
able to hear that? There's some billing issues with trying to get that completed.
Yes, I hear it.
Okay. And then we'll just check with Councilmember Casagrande. Are we able to hear you again? I'm sorry for the inconsistency.
It's okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, we can.
Great. So I don't understand why we're pushing this back. I understand the water, it's kind of the same thing as the water sewer rate study. Why do we have to wait till March to start implementing this? Why can't we have a work session in 3 days and have the hour that we're going to quickly go over what administration is going to present to us? I don't understand why this is being pushed back so far. I think it's a great idea that we want to have a great product, but why a month?
So you're in your conversations with the audit firm, and they're obviously helping you develop the scope of the RFP. Is there a way, what's their timeline for the scope of the RFP?
I believe the 8th would be great, and I guess back to Director Schessler's point, maybe we can do the audit work session on the 8th, and we can find another date, like, a noon meeting or something of that sort to do the water wastewater study, the rate study discussion.
Or vice versa?
Or vice versa.
Monday at noon for the audit? No?
No, we can. I'm just, man, every time we turn around and have a meeting, we're always putting on more work sessions and more work sessions, and it's just, what's the rush? We can wait. This is not a national emergency. I understand there are some people that want to get this done ASAP, but anyways, pick a date and let's see if I can get there in time.
do we need an hour and a half for the water wastewater?
We could probably get it in an hour if we, I'll make sure to push it, and it just limits a little bit of the questions, but I think we're getting to that final product where we could push it in and get it in an hour.
Okay.
If that helps make things go, we could go at 5 to 6 and be done, and
We can
make
squish
sure
them
we
both.
get on it.
Yep, let's do a 5 to 6 and a 6 to 7. Actually, let's start at 4:30.
Yeah.
Let's start at 4:30 on that day, and we'll set
This would be the 8th,
the 8th.
and we'll get
4:30?
everyone here?
You wanna start?
Mm-hmm.
I'm at work till 4:30, so.
Okay, well, we'll say 5 o'clock, and we'll just.
I'm just saying at 4:30, I'm at work still, so.
We can say 5 o'clock, and we'll just work quickly. We'll limit our comments.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And can I understand which is at 5 and which is at 6?
Administration, what would you like to do?
I think we can get ours done maybe quicker and maybe give you more time if that helps to get done sooner. I don't know if you'd be ready to jump into the next work session. If we started the water sewer rate study at 5 and try to get it within that hour, if we got done at 5:45, would that help or not?
And we'll advertise it a little early, sure.
I can do it.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect.
And we'll do whatever we can to condense it down. And like I
Okay.
said, then we just might have to take written questions or something after or something. If there is.
Next on the agenda, city clerk report, city manager search update.
Okay, so I had a update meeting with GovHR this morning. I've got a short list of questions that were provided to me from DeMoss and Casa Grande since they were appointed. So the questions back from GovHR, because council chose Spark Hire for the initial candidates, and I communicated, we're down to 8 prospective candidates for the city manager. So council wants to do Spark Hire, which is a video taped responses to these questions that we're gonna provide. 8 candidates, how long do you want to give them to answer each question? If it's 5 questions times 3 minutes, it's like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever you choose, times 5 questions times 8 candidates. Adds up to the time that it's gonna take you to review all the videos. So that's the first question. How much time do you want to allot them to answer?
And there's 5 questions.
We're gonna target down to 5. We started with 7, that's too many, because it would take like 3 hours at this point to
My
get
suggestion
through, so.
would be 5 questions, 3 minutes, so we're 15 minutes each person. Any objection to that? I'll start with Vice Mayor Baclan.
So that's 2 hours.
Nope.
Councilmember Cease?
No.
Councilmember Casa Grande?
No.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. How many times do you want to allow the candidates to redo their answers? Your choices are, they get asked the question, they answer it, boom, they're done. That's it. Do you want to give them a second chance to redo their answer? Do you want to give them a third chance? This all has to be pre-programmed.
One and done, let's see how
Yeah.
they think on their feet. Any objections on the phone? Okay,
Okay,
No.
thank you. That's it. Thank you.
all right. And then you're scheduling that? Like, it'll be scheduled with us when those are ready?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is Chamber of Commerce report from Jason Bickling. This is how the sausage gets made, folks.
Okay, I'm gonna call in.
Good evening.
Jason, hi, you're with council for your Chamber of Commerce report.
All right, good evening, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I apologize for the length of my report. It's been a while since I've reported to you guys, so just want to make a few quick highlights. One, I did want to say thank you to our sponsors for the New Year's Eve fireworks. That was just a great event and got a lot of positive feedback. And we do plan on doing that again and making it kind of an annual event and building on that. So I just want to thank our sponsors for making that possible this year. And just thank you to you guys for approving that second round of CARES funding. We do have a sewer spends program that we're getting kind of word out about right now that was coming up on Valentine's Day weekend. And so because of that, kind of provides a nice boost for our local businesses and also our residents. So, and then just one last note is our 2021 visitor guide is completed. We have a few copies in the office thus far, but when we do get more in, I'll be sure to bring some down to the offices and to the council chambers there for you guys to check out. So it turned out really. And if you guys have any other questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Councilmember McClure.
I just have one sort of comment on the New Year's Eve fireworks. I've been contacted by several businesses that would have loved to have contributed. So when you get sponsorship for next New Year's Eve, maybe you could put out a wider reach, because there were businesses that would have given money, in addition to the ones that did.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate the feedback.
Vice Mayor Buckland, did you have any questions or comments for the Chamber Director?
I just wanted to thank the Chamber for what they're doing for the sewer spends program. Looks like it's going to be a really successful, hopefully really successful program.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease, did you have any questions or comments for the Chamber Director?
No, I don't, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Casagrande?
No, thank you.
I'll look to the dais. Councilmember Demas?
Yes, I just had one comment, Jason. Thank you for all your work that you did, especially with the fireworks. That was really neat. And I just wanted to echo what Councilmember McClure said. I had several businesses reach out to me and would have liked to be able to contribute as well, and would have appreciated the advertisement as a sponsor as well. So I think that's maybe something that we could look for in next year's event. But that's all. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And then I just have one question for you. So with the sewer spends program, you're going to be providing a list to the community of the eligible businesses. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, the eligible businesses need to actually apply to become eligible.
Okay.
And so we have to put the word out to you have to be a chamber member and you have to be an eligible business. And so, yeah, so there's information out there. If not, call the chamber. We can get that information to you, but you do need to do that to become eligible. So that way we can have all your stuff on file to make sure that you are registered with the borough, pay taxes, and all that kind of stuff. So.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Great. Have a good night.
Thanks, you as well.
Next is year-end report from Providence Seward Medical Center by Robert Rank. Thank you for joining us, and I know you have a great report that you provided to council.
Yes, thank you. So, yes, my name is Robert Rank. I am the CEO Administrator for the Medical Center. I do want to emphasize this is, I appreciate the opportunity to report to the council. I've been with the organization for about 2 years, and I still find it interesting within members of our community that are not aware that the hospital and the long-term care center is city-owned. And we just, as Providence, have the privilege of being able to manage it for you. So I want to take every opportunity to emphasize that as well. A couple of highlights I wanted to share. This has kind of been a busy year. This pandemic seems to have taken the focus for most of us. We have, and through our admission process, we've had a few community members that we have admitted and been able to take care of our local facility based on their needs. But there's also been several that we've had to ship up to Anchorage because of the amount of care that they require. So we have had some admissions with this, but we've been very fortunate in the fact that the needs of the folks within our community that have had COVID have been pretty manageable. I do want to start off with that a couple times this month, this year, Providence, Alaska organized a fundraiser for all the local food banks within the communities in which they serve, which includes not just Seward and Anchorage, but also Kodiak and Valdez. The way they usually rolled these out was that they would match, through the foundation, they would match any funds that were raised. And so for the two fundraisers we had in April and November, just for our little small local food bank, we raised over $49,000. Usually the way it rolls out is we ask the staff to donate, and the foundation, I took it one step further and actually reached out to the community, and we actually had quite a bit of community participation as well. In fact, the funds that were raised in April actually exceeded what Anchorage raised, so it says a lot about our community. We conducted our annual partnership grant again this year in October. This is we do a needs assessment every 3 years based on what we determine those needs and folks that are working, some of the nonprofit organizations within the community. We partner with them so that they can help take their work to the next level. We donated $200,000 to local organizations. This year the recipients were the Seward Prevention Coalition, Seward Community Health Center, Seward Area Hospice, the Boys and Girls Club, and Seaview Community Services. I really want to express my sincere thanks to the AFTEC. When this pandemic first rolled out, as you guys know, there was a lot of unknowns. We weren't sure how it was going to affect. Washington was getting hit pretty hard at that point in time. As a result, the state had asked that all communities all form an alternate care center site in case it should happen. AFTEC graciously opened up their gymnasium when we were able to open up a 24-bed unit with licensure should we need it. We were very fortunate we didn't need to have that. It was actually going to be Plan C should anything happen, which meant that our hospital got overrun. We could not ship anybody outside to transfer to Anchorage or Salon or other areas, and then we'd have to start utilizing that. We were very fortunate we never got to that stage. So we were able to deactivate just prior to their starting school again in September. Despite this challenge we've had with the pandemic, I'm happy to say that recruitment and retention efforts for this past year have been showing results. We have decreased our agency needs from 28 this time last year down to 16, and we've got several other job offers pending at this point in time, so we've got other folks going to join the team. The advantage of that, don't get me wrong, I have a lot of respect for our agency staff, but they're not vested in the community. They don't pay taxes. They don't, they're not renting. They're not buying, and just from a continuity care and taking our quality levels to that measure, that turnover. So, but we've done a lot of work between our culture, looking at making sure the salaries we pay are appropriate, and a few other benefits, and it's starting to pay off. We are hiring a security team for the hospital. Due to some mental health issues, we see safety concerns for patients and staff. It's not just unique to Seward. This is things that we've seen across the nation. And it's come time to protect everybody. We felt we needed to have a 24/7 security operation. So we actually have quite a few candidates. Interviews should be taking place. We hope to have everybody hired and probably trained by the end of February, early March. And so that's good news for our organization. We have been speaking of the pandemic, we've been very fortunate. Out of our 35 residents, we have had no positive cases within those folks. As you know, that's our very vulnerable population within our community. However, we've had some of our caregivers that are positive. The contact tracings that were conducted was nothing to do with there was no work association. It was through the community and through family members and a few other things. So what we do, we've been testing every week, depending on how high the numbers were in the borough and within our own organization. There's times that our long-term care staff was getting tested twice a week. And so everybody's getting pretty good at those nasal swabs. As I reported back in May, I didn't realize it's been that long since I've been presented to you guys. We were looking at starting a specialty clinic. We've learned that there's a lot of community members that go routinely up to Anchorage or to even to Soldotna for infusions for routine basis, and we was able to get that going about 4 months ago. We're hoping as the program expands, we'll be able to start offering more services, specialty clinic providers coming on site, and maybe start doing some things with some colonoscopies, having audiology, ENT, podiatry, those kind of folks, maybe doing simple procedures. As you know, our hospital's pretty small. There's not, we only got the one procedure room, so we're pretty limited on what services we can provide, but I think it's important as we serve the community that we, as much as possible, try to provide services that we can provide locally without the risk of everybody trying to drive, hour and a half up and an hour and a half back, to the Anchorage area. The other thing I wanted to share is we are making some pretty good ground, and we are partnering with the Anchorage Home Health Department, and it looks like we may be able to start offering home health services here in town. There's advantage that it's not just for nursing services, but it would also include some rehab services, so PT and OT could actually go into homes for those particular clientele. So I'm pretty excited, and that's looking very promising. Some of the finance highlights. 2 years in a row we've had a profitable year. We closed out 2020 with $23.7 million in gross revenues, and ended up with just a little bit of over $3 million after all the bills were paid. Some of the volumes looking compared to the year before, ER volume was down about 30%. Obviously, with our tourist season being like it was, we didn't get a lot of the folks we would normally see during the busy 4 months we normally see, so that's consequently. However, our inpatient volume was up 27%. About half of that is contributed to our COVID patients that we've seen with this pandemic, but have been a lot of folks for other medical reasons that we've been able to take care of locally. And our rehab services have also increased notably. Because of having a good profitable year, we were able to address some of the much needed capital equipment and some other updates. We've got kind of a lineup there. We spent about $300,000 in some facility upgrades, $125,000 out of some grants for new equipment. Capital funds that we received through the city, about $825,000 we spent on some new equipment, and we spent about $400,000 on some equipment leases. Mostly those are all towards imaging equipment. These include resurfacing the parking lots at both campuses. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but hospital's over 20, almost 25 years old, and that parking lot has not been addressed since that, well, I've been told for the folks that the long-term care facility is its 11th anniversary in that parking lot also. So along with just putting a coat and putting new paint on the parking areas and the lines and stuff, it also includes filling in all the cracks, and they have a way of sealing it so that it looks all brand new, which was a nice project. We repainted the exterior of the hospital and the main building over at the long-term care. Purchased a new microscope for our lab. Again, 11-year-old facility, had a lot of the furniture on the Mountain Haven side we decided it was time to replace, which included tables, mattresses, and a lot of the furniture. For whatever reason, when the purchase stuff was, upholstery seemed to be the theme of choice, so we decided to go with surfaces that are easier to clean, and with our pandemic, we wanted to use some of that, hopefully use some of that care money towards infection control measures. We purchased a new ultrasound portable X-ray machine, and you'll see we've got construction going on, actually starting tomorrow. They're tearing out the old X-ray table and installing a brand new one, and so that should be done by the end of April. We purchased well, new to us, it's a used maintenance truck and plow and sander. I have, even through my personal life, I have issues of finding brand new equipment. You appreciate it so quickly as you get it off the parking lot. So we were able to find about a 4-year-old vehicle that only had about 20,000 miles on it. And given what our needs are of being a work truck, you know, if it had a little scratch on it or those kind of things, that was not what was concerning us. So we added a plow and sander to that. And fortunately enough with this, the year that we've had, we've used it quite a bit. We bought new ER stretchers, and the nurse call system is actually, I'm pretty sure, came with the building also about 25, and is no longer supported by the vendor. It's about a $180,000 project, and it'll also include the rooms that the clinic also maintains. And so that'll be installed probably around March this time. Because of work with the grants, we got a new transport van that was actually came through Premier Healthcare Insurance. The emergency preparedness grant, we're going to get a new oxygen generator. I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but we get the big green bottles. The ship come down about twice a week from Anchorage, and as you guys know, that road is not the best to travel in the wintertime, and we've had some, and because of our need with COVID, we actually had some times in which we ran out of oxygen and had to make some midnight runs. And just given from emergency preparedness aspect, it's probably good that we actually be able to generate our own oxygen locally. So that'll be installed towards sometime this summer. Swallow study equipment for rehab, stroke patients and those that have challenges swallowing. These will be able to determine what kind of exercises and some help them with folks be able to swallow better and less chance of aspirating, causing pneumonia. And we also got a new equipment trailer for our emergency management to be able to store stuff and keep it mobile, so that depending on where equipment's needed, whether it be over at the Mountain Haven or at the hospital, all that equipment that we utilize for the AFTEC setup actually went in there along with some other stuff, and so that'll make things all concise and be able to put together. I think the biggest news I want to share with you guys is that our liability with Providence Anchorage continues to decrease. In January of 2019, if you recall, we had just a little over $6 million still on that debt. We closed out last month with just over 2.5, and we put another $250,000 to it this month, so we're down to about 2.3, a little less. So if this trend continues, we anticipate having that debt resolved by the end of the year. questions.
Great report, Councilmember.
I just have one. It was stated at a previous report, or maybe it was from your x-ray person, that you were in need of a new x-ray machine. Is this portable x-ray machine the new x-ray machine that you were in need of, or is there another one?
Actually, to be honest with you, Councilmember, all three of our pieces of equipment were no longer supported by the vendor. And so,
Right.
yeah, so we a new ultrasound, a new portable x-ray machine, which we already have in service. And that's actually what we're going to be using, because right now the hard table that's in the room with the overhead slider and stuff, that's what's getting replaced at this point in time. So yeah, we've got 2 of the 3 pieces, but yeah, every one of them was over 15 years old.
Right.
And as medical equipment goes, that's well beyond its life expectancy.
Thanks.
I'll look to my left. Are there any questions? I'll check on the phone. Vice Mayor Bakwan, did you have any questions?
Yes, well, I just more of a comment. I wanted to thank Mr. Rang for his report tonight. I also really am interested in what you said about reducing the agency staff and really promoting long-term employees here, looking at your culture and hopefully looking at the pay scale and retaining some long-term year-round residents in Seward, I think, is really helpful to our community. A lot of the caregivers and providers that we have are really excellent, amazing members of our community, and we are very fortunate to have them. So thank you, and thank you to your staff and everyone at the hospital and at the long-term care facility as well for really making Seward a great place.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. If I may add, it wasn't in my report, but we've actually got the next week, we're actually having a conversation with the high school that offer a CNA class come spring of 2022, in which the students would actually take a CNA class, and so it'd be part of our workforce development and be able to get folks into the workforce right off the bat. That's
great.
looking very promising.
That's very good. Councilmember Cease, did you have any questions?
We lost her, Mayor Terry, just a minute ago, so.
Okay, Councilmember Casagrande, did you have any questions? I just have.
She's just muted.
Okay, she'll click in probably. I just have one question. So just so the public knows, so it's Providence Seward Medical Care Center, but you're also reporting for the long-term care facility.
That is correct.
So these revenues after expenses, that includes the long-term care.
Total operations, yes.
Yeah, so that's excellent. Thank you so much. All right, with that, thank you again, and we will go to your compadre over here. And Craig, thank you. We also have a lay down for you with your reports. We have that in front of us, and I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you. I'm Craig Ambrosiani. I'm Executive Director of Seward's Community Health Center. I've been in this position about 3.5 years. Well, right off the bat, yes. This is my compadre over here because we rely on each other a lot, and we have through this pandemic, and really it's so easy to make a phone call and say, hey, I need to use the drive-through, and he's like, good, how many staff do you need? I mean, it's just been, the back and forth has just been great. So I really appreciate everything we've done, and part of this report also mentions that how well our community did working together to deal with this. And the first page shows a graph, with 2 pretty significant peaks as far as the number of active cases. But that's the thing, they're peaks, they're not plateaus. So, I mean, we took care of it as a community, and it was just really good to work with everyone. We got a little worried and we got panicked and things happened, and but I think as a community, everyone did their part. We got assistance from all parts of the community, and we're able to do the testing, the follow-up calls to people to make sure they're being taken care of and not ending up in the ER. So we were very pleased about how it came out so far. It's certainly not over yet. And we did see that, we do have a strong community. When we work together, we can make a positive impact on our community's health. As far as how we did with some of our clinic business, our volumes were down. We saw 16% less people but we had 11% less visits. So we saw people more frequently, but we did see a decrease in folks. Basically that lined out or came out pretty close to how many non-residents we see each year. Revenues were down about 10%, but our expenses were up significantly to handle our COVID issues. We did get $743,000 in federal grants that we utilized this year to cover those expenses. We did not request any additional funds from the city or from any of the other COVID grant programs outside of the federal ones that we already received, because we really didn't feel we needed it to do what we were tasked to do. Expenses are up about 15%, mostly from personnel costs, overtime, additional staff, hazard pay, those kinds of things that we did for our staff. We did have a good positive bottom line this year, $273,000 versus $116,000 from last year. Some of those funds, we finalized our grants early or at the end of this year, but we'll probably, we expect to dip into some of those into this year, depending, we don't know if we're going to get any more federal grants or not this year, but we still are doing vaccinations. And they're, as I'll explain as we go on, they're a bit costly to us operationally. Otherwise, we're stable. Over 60 days worth of available cash. Accounts receivables is right in line. Our current ratio is running about 2.8 with an expectation of 1.5. Our revenues continue to grow year over year, as the graph on the second page shows. In 2020, we did receive just the $100,000 from the City of Seward. And in the 2021, we were budgeted to not receive any funding from the City of Seward. And this was something that was agreed upon a long time ago for the health center to eventually be on its own without any additional city funding. So we've been working that funding down over the years until, so next year, or I'm sorry, not next, this year, 2021, we will not be receiving any city funding. HRSA, our Health Services, Health Resources and Services Administration, arm of the federal government that works with us and that we get our grant through. That's a co-applicant grant with us and the city. They helped us quite a bit through this pandemic with their grants. Robert and I have talked about some of the grants, and we received grants that were extremely flexible, and where some of the other grants that came through for other organizations were a lot more strict on what you could spend it on. And HRSA is very good about wording their grants so that we could assist the community in their needs and not just be specific to our organization. But they also said too, they didn't want us laying off people. They wanted us to be able to fund all of our positions through the pandemic, so we were here if the community needed us. We did have our, of course, once every 3 years we get an operational site visit from HRSA, where they spend 3 days with reviewers, 3 reviewers going over everything, 93 points of compliance, where they dig into everything. And of course, that was this year. So we did well. We passed everything and found compliant on all of it. Our board gets interviewed, all kinds of people get interviewed. We did, they have to take tours of the facility, but that was all done with iPads and everything. So it was very interesting to do it virtually with them, but it went very well. Our board membership, we currently we're at 13 out of 15 seats filled. We are looking at the possibility of knocking that down to 15 seats and saying we'd only need 12 to be full. So that would still keep us in compliance and we wouldn't run through so many community members through the board. Our building project, we do have the preliminary drawings with site plan and space requirements. Our next step right now, we're talking to folks about doing a feasibility study and trying to figure out what, how much of this can we really afford, what kind of funding is out there for us, what kind of direction can we take for that. Also, we did receive, we received $45,000 from Providence, we received $100,000 from the Premier Rasmussen Group. for a mobile clinic van project. So we're still looking for some more funding, but we're trying to figure out exactly what it's going to look like. We're looking at one of those Sprinter type vans, and we would use it to continue to vaccinate and test throughout the community, also to do telehealth, possibly even like parking it, maybe at Moose Pass, seeing patients there, or doing telehealth with patients, somewhere like that, or going out to people's homes that need it. Staffing, we've done well with staffing also. We have 19 full-time positions. We've had 3 turnovers this year. 2 of those turnovers were folks that came and left within the first 3 months. Some housing-related issues, some just wasn't the right thing, and then one person left because of personal reasons. We still have our providers, Dr. Allen, Dr. Roloff, Dr. Schellinger, Jeanette Neighbor, our physician assistant, Julie Kreitz, AMP, and Mike Crater, licensed professional counselor. So we're happy to have maintained our staff through this pandemic so far. The one thing I don't think you've gotten in these reports before, but we put it in, is our quality indicators. We have to report these annually to HRSA, and it does show what level of quality we're providing at the community health center and the things we look at. We're not just looking at how well we fix somebody's sprained ankle. You know, we're looking at what's the overall health of our patients, and you know, are we keeping diabetics A1C under 9? And if we're not, it shows up on here. And we track this for every patient that comes in, and we review it every month. So this past year we got some excellent software that helps us see this on a monthly basis, so we can continue to improve it with our patients. And the last part here, so we're never done, it seems like, with compliance. So our next deal is our patient-centered medical home accreditation. We're in the process of transforming how we do our clinic, and we are working behind the scenes before patients come in to make sure we're totally prepared for the patients, that your lab tests are done, that we looked up anything that may need services we have. If you need like education, we try and line the education up before you get there. If you need to talk to a counselor, we try and get that lined up before you get there. And these are all things that are part of this patient-centered medical home, so that when you come to us, we can take care of things that are needed for you. With this, though, we're also having to become more efficient and asking patients to be on time for their appointments, and to be on time with their check-in time. And we are having some computer issues and trying to make sure that the check-in time is what is getting out to people, not just the appointment time. The check-in time is when we expect people to be there. The appointment time is when your provider walks in the room. So there's 2 different times, and we're trying to get that straightened out with our computer system, so we only get 1 time out to folks. COVID vaccinations, probably the hot topic right now. So far, we've administered 330 first doses. We did over 200 just last week. This week we're doing 50 more. And then as we find out, and that'll use up the allotment that we got for January from the state. So once we figure out what's allotted for February, then we'll start calling people that are on the list and doing first vaccinations for February. Folks that are already received their first one, we will automatically be getting those doses next month to administer for the second round. We are still doing testing. This week it's tomorrow. We scale that up and down based on the volume of positive cases in the community. Cases are not skyrocketing right now, so we're just doing 1 day a week. Our staff is, like Roberts, we've been testing our staff every week, and then last week we started going once every 3 weeks because of the volume in the town. And then outreach, I believe we're still the only outreach facility, or the facility that's, we're the only ones doing Medicare and Medicaid enrollment and other state-funded programs. We're seeing last year about 126 people. So we're continuing to do that through the community and working with the Homeless Connection. We're hitting next month, hitting our 7th anniversary. So we're pretty pleased to have been around for 7 years and worked within the community and everyone here to help get us there. We continue to collaborate, and we know everybody's been through a tough time, and our staff is a bit strained. We're trying to work on that. We know the community is a bit strained. This thing's been lasting a lot longer than anybody thought it would. We just ask, please be nice, be patient. All of us, including all of us. We're all trying to do the best we can with what we have. We know everybody's a little bit frazzled. So just try and, stay in touch with everybody, keep masking, keep social distancing. Because we've been doing great as a community, and I think we're going to get through this just as well. So that ends my report.
Great,
Madam
thank you.
Mayor.
Good reminders at the end and good info. I'll look to the dais first. Do you have Councilmember Demas?
I just wanted to say thank you to you both, especially through the COVID stuff. And it was, as a business owner, it was comforting knowing that I could contact, I know I spoke to you a few times, Craig, and just had good discussions that were very encouraging, and I think that communication was so important during that time, and I think that you guys did a really great job at that, communicating to the community what was going on and just being available to business members, business owners in the community. So thank you.
Councilmember McClure?
I just wanted to comment on the friendly professionalism of the COVID vaccination times up there, because I was up there with my mom, and it was efficient and friendly and professional and clean. People worry sometimes about getting COVID by going up there. It was just very, very well done. I'm looking forward to going back in another couple of weeks for the second round.
It kind of turned into a social event.
It was for that group of people, it was absolutely a social event, yes.
Good report. Vice Mayor Buckland, did you have any questions or comments, sir?
No, thank you, Craig.
Thank you. And then I did see Councilmember Cease on again for a minute. Councilmember Cease, did you have any questions or comments?
No, I don't have any questions. I just want to thank the Seward Health Community or the Seward Community Health for being so nice to everybody about this COVID. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you. Councilmember Casagrande, did you have any questions or comments?
Oh, she said no.
Okay, no. Thanks for using the chat function.
It was a text.
Oh, it was a text.
Yeah.
Okay. Regardless,
We
thank
don't
you,
use chat.
Councilmember Casagrande. So let's just echo our thanks to both of you. Thank you for coming tonight and good report. Okay, next on the agenda is ordinances for public, am I good to keep going? Okay, ordinances for public hearing and enactment. First one is ordinance 2021-001. Madam Clerk, if you could read the title into the record.
Ordinance 2021-001 is amending portions of Seward City Code Chapters 5.01 and Chapter 5.05 Budget to create a more timely, robust, and publicly involved budget process.
And so I'm looking for a motion and a second.
I moved for the approval of ordinance 2021-001.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And normally this is when I turn to administration for comments. But since I sponsored this ordinance, I'll point out a few things and then I'll maybe ask if Sam has any further comments. So the ordinance starts on page 27. I just want to highlight a few things. So in case there's some confusion under section 1, what it does is it cleans up that fiscal year. When the ordinance was first put into place, we were on a different schedule. So this just updates, just clarifies that what we're doing is already happening, that our fiscal year runs January 1. It's a calendar year. So when this ordinance was first put in place, it wasn't that. So that language that you see that's being stricken was referring to the previous, back in 1999. Then under the next section, we're already doing this. We start the budget process in September, and this just codifies that by that first Friday in September, the city manager is going to present the overview of the preliminary budget assumptions. A big one that's changing is under section 5.05010, the budget proposal. It, for the new city manager, codifies having a 6-year program for those capital improvements. So every 6 years, the city manager shall submit a 6-year program for capital improvements. This cleans up, that CPI list that we seem like we just keep perpetuating at the end of our budget, just to flesh that out a little bit more. And then I'm trying to think what else. Oh, so under 5.05015, with the public hearings, again, in practice, we've been having at least 2 public hearings, but it hasn't been outlined in code. So this just cleans up the code to match what our current practices are. And then it just sets that first public hearing no sooner than 14 days after the budget. So it won't be a public hearing and the budget being, won't be introduced at the same time. It gives the public time to review. And then the second public hearing will be held not less than 1 week before the final adoption. So there's the spacing in there to allow the public comments. And then I think that's it. Sam, I think, I did run this by administration, so I don't know if this Deputy Finance Director has any objections to anything that's being proposed or any further comments, and then we'll go to the public hearing.
No, I actually think these are really great changes. Just putting everything in code, making it more clear, putting more of a timeline on it. I know that there's been issues with budget in the past, so I think this is actually really good for us to put it, especially the capital improvements in there too. So I'm all for this, and I appreciate you bringing it forward.
Yeah, administration's been helpful. So before we go to questions, the first thing I'm going to do is open up the public hearing. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to speak or raising their hands?
No, ma'am, we do not.
Okay, well, on that, I'll close the public hearing. And now questions. So I'm going to start on the phone. Vice Mayor Buckland, did you have any questions or comments?
No questions. I do want to thank Mayor Terry for bringing this forward, being a part of the last budget process. I think this will help us keep a timely timeline on the process, and everybody knows what needs to be done and when it needs to be done by.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease, did you have any comments?
No, I don't, but I'm glad to see that this is getting cleaned up.
Okay, and then, I'm sorry, Councilmember Casagrande, I seem to be calling you last just out of habit, but did you have any comments or questions?
She does not at this time.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll look to the dais.
She's texting me because of her connectivity
Yeah, that's
issues.
fine. If
Okay.
that's working for you, that works
If
great.
that's-
Appreciate it, Councilmember Casagrande, that's wonderful. I'll look to the dais if there's any, it's not like I stepped out and did anything. The city clerk was very helpful, administration was very helpful, so I think it was just a good group effort. So, Madam Clerk, I think we're ready to call for a vote.
Voting on the enactment of ordinance 2021-001, McClure?
Yes.
Casagrande?
Yeah, the bad part with that is just that.
She's unmuted. Maybe you have a bad... We'll move on. Just keep trying to get through, Rissy. Demas?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Osenga?
Yes.
Baklan?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
Well, Casagrande just texted me a yes. but-
So my only question with that,
Like
which I
that.
appreciate, I think our code says a voice vote.
Yeah, I'd like that to be.
So if you can holler.
Okay,
Can
I'll
you
do,
hear me now?
Oh, yes, yes, so yes or no, thank you.
Yes. I don't, it's weird, like, when I mute, I unmute, and when I mute, it's the opposite.
You're doing great, thanks for sticking with us, we appreciate it. So I think, Madam Clerk, we.
Okay.
that ordinance has been enacted.
Okay, ordinance has been enacted. Thank you, everyone, for that. Next, we're on to unfinished business, items postponed for previous agenda. So this is actually on the floor, and it's Resolution 2021-006. Madam Clerk, if you could read the title.
Resolution 2021-006 is authorizing the city manager to enter into a consulting services contract with Corey Borgeson for electric management services in an amount not to exceed $37,500 and appropriating funds.
And I'm just going to step out just to keep things moving along, and I'm going to propose adoption of Resolution 2021-006, substitute resolution and substitute contract, and I'll be looking for a second.
I will second that.
Okay, so now what's on the floor is the substitute resolution and the substitute contract that starts on page 39, and I'll turn it over to administration. And I feel like I'm yelling, so sorry about that, everyone at home. So maybe just to say you've made the changes from the last meeting and you've tailored the contract. Maybe talk about how the contract's been tailored.
Okay, thank you.
Can we? Okay, I'm sorry. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, am I okay?
Yep. No,
Okay,
fine.
okay, thank you.
So we hope we've dealt with all the issues that were addressed at the last meeting. We've lowered the number of hours, we've lowered the amount. There was a question about the dollar amount, and frankly, what it adds is would cover 150 hours, and there'd be about $750 to cover expenses. And now these are expenses that were involved with travel and everything else that might be necessary, not necessarily going to happen. The contract says they have to be pre-approved in advance. And so it's not to cover like my expenses, the supplies, or anything else like that. It's just what's necessary expenses to conduct the business that I might be asked to do. So that's where the amount comes from. I hope that's clear enough. The contract was drafted by Brooks Chandler, and I think we had a citizen comment that it looked much better. So anyway, I hope this deals with everything. I'm looking forward to assisting the utility in the future.
Great, thank you. So this time I'll start with Councilmember Casagrande on the Zoom. If you have any comments or questions or anything.
Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
That's fabulous. I'd just like to clarify that this is basically a PO that we're approving, that it doesn't necessarily all have to be spent, and this is how much we're willing to spend in the event that we need this much contracting, correct?
Is that, I'm hearing a correct from the floor.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I'll go to Vice Mayor Baclan. Did you have any questions or comments or anything else, sir? You might be muted, I'm sorry.
I had a question about number 3 under the contract where it says fee. City shall pay consultant as compensation for the services rendered under this agreement at an hourly rate of $245 per hour. And then it says reimbursement of all actual expenses incurred, a sum not to exceed then it says $37,500. So it seems to say as that is the expenses. It doesn't clear it up. So I guess my motion would be to say, to strike strike not to exceed, no strike. So after exceed would say $750 for a total of $37,500 total.
Where do you see that?
So, top of page 43, I'll second. Top of
Thank
page
you.
43, the sentence now reads, under fee, the city shall pay consultant as a compensation for the services rendered under this agreement an hourly rate of $245 per hour plus a reimbursement of all actual expenses incurred, a sum not to exceed $37,500. That's how it currently reads. And I think what you're saying is, it doesn't specifically say, it says in the agenda statement that's $750, but it doesn't say in the contract. So you are adding in actual expenses incurred, a sum not to exceed $750 for a total of $37,500 inclusive of all. Is that correct? Does that?
Yes.
See, that just cleans up that sentence. Is there any objection? No, okay. I think we can go ahead and call for a vote.
Voting on that amendment, Casagrande,
Yes.
Baclan,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
Vice Mayor Baclan, did you have any further comments?
Yes, one more under C. I'm sorry, I'm going back and forth on the computer and the Zoom. It's under 1C of the contract, complete work on, I'd like to make a motion to strike National Park Service and replace that with Chugach National Forest transmission line.
I'll second. Is there any objection from administration? No
No.
objection. Let's just call for a vote, please.
Voting on the amendment, Demas,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Baclan,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
Vice Mayor Baclan, did you have any further comments?
That's it, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease, did you have any comments?
No, I don't.
Thank you. Councilmember Casagrande?
No comment.
Thank you. I'll look to the dais. Madam Clerk, let's call for a vote, please.
Voting on the adoption of the substitute resolutions as amended. Osenga,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Baclan,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Mayor appoint 2 council members to the tabulation team for the city clerk. Prior to this meeting, we looked at changing the evaluation forms, and we said we can't take action at a work session, but the plan was to continue with the forms as is and then set up a committee in February to look at what those forms might look like moving forward. Right now, we need 2 council members to form the tabulation team for the city clerk evaluation. I'll look around. Are there any volunteers? Anyone interested? Anyone interested on the phone to be part of that tabulation team?
I will volunteer.
Anyone else? I'm happy to volunteer also, unless there's anyone else that would like to.
There's going to be 2 other opportunities.
Yeah, so I'll just
Thank
start
you.
off. So I will go ahead and make a motion to appoint myself and Vice Mayor Baclan as the tabulation team for the city clerk evaluation. And I don't think I need a second for that.
You really just,
It's
you don't,
just
we
me
don't
making
even need
the
to vote.
appointment.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
fine. Thank you.
All right. Good work, everyone. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2021-008. Madam Clerk, if you could read that title into the record.
Resolution 2021-008 is establishing the City of Seward's calendar year 2021 city legislative priorities.
And I'm looking for a motion and a second. I'll move. I'll move adoption of 2021-008.
No second.
Thank you. So, You know, I won't necessarily turn it over to administration unless there's a question, because we did have a work session. But I believe it was Vice Mayor Baclan that pulled this, and I could be wrong, I'm sorry, Vice Mayor Baclan, but I believe it was yourself that pulled it off the consent. Did you have any comments, or did you have a motion to make?
Yes, I did. It has to do with B, on the last bullet point, to add $50,000 to that item, the last one.
So, you want to have a motion, I'll second that motion. So just to clarify though, so that it'll be bullet point $60,000, evaluate a set site location for new additional wastewater treatment facility? Is that-
Yes, thank you.
Okay, which I know, and I'll let you speak to that motion, how you came to that dollar amount.
That was through some constituent concerns that if we didn't assign a dollar amount, that it could possibly fall off, and just, or not having any kind of parameters around that item.
And so I guess my question to you would be the $60,000 specifically?
So it was actually 50,000.
Oh, I thought you said.
And that was based off of the other study, I think above it, or there's another one. Yeah. Based off of the one above it for the wastewater sewer system analysis. Just kind of estimating off of there.
Okay, so it was actually 50, and that's my mistake. Councilmember Osenga?
I just have a question. I'm trying to figure out what evaluate and assess site locations for a new additional facility. What is that going to entail? Are we going to have to pay an engineer to go out and find a spot? Or, I mean, are we looking at just somebody from the city running around town and looking for a spot? I guess I'm trying to figure out some clarity here. So, I mean, even if...
So I guess this would be for legislative support to get, funding to have this happen so that we wouldn't have to pay for it.
You know, I guess my only concern would be, I don't know, because it evaluate assess site location for a new additional wastewater facility. I don't know that we've made the determination that we couldn't expand at the site. So that would be my only concern, even with this bullet point as a whole. I don't know if administration has any comments.
No comments.
I guess we're not tied to anything on here. Many of these things are more conceptual in nature, and we're just speaking to this motion. Councilmember Casagrande, did you have any comments with this motion? Oh, she dropped off. Councilmember Cease, did you have any comments pertaining to this motion?
No, I don't.
So we're just...
I'd like to amend.
Okay.
And I would like to amend to say, evaluate assess site location for a new or expanded striking additional wastewater treatment facility.
So let's do it this way. Let's go for the 50,000. We'll vote on that, and then we'll do a separate amendment.
Okay.
Madam Clerk, let's do the 50.
Voting on the amendment for $50,000. Osenga?
No.
Cease?
Excuse me, yes.
McClure?
Yes.
Casagrande?
Yes.
Demas?
Yes.
Baclan?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
Okay, that amendment is approved.
And then back to you, Vice Mayor.
I'd like to motion to amend the last bullet point to add after new or expanded and strike additional wastewater treatment facility.
I'll second. I don't know that we need further discussion, so let's just call for a vote unless, I'll look to Councilmember Casagrande. I know you may be clicked out for a second. Did you have any other comments specific to this line item? let's call for a vote.
Voting on the amendment, Buckline,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Let's come back.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yes.
Cease. Oh, Cease, is she back
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
McClure,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That amendment is approved.
Councilmember Buckland, did you have any further items? I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, pardon me.
No, thank you so much for your patience.
No, thank you. Councilmember Cease, did you have any comments pertaining to Resolution 2021-008?
No, I don't.
Councilmember Casagrande?
No, thank you.
Thank you, and I'll look to the dais. Okay, let's call for a vote, please.
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2021-008 as amended, Osenga,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Buckline,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
and Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Thank you. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2020-009. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2021-009 is establishing the City of Seward's calendar year 2021 state legislative priorities.
Thank you. Also move, and I'll look for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you. And then I'll turn it back to you, Vice Mayor Buckland, and then we'll let you comment. Okay, Vice Mayor Buckland?
I'm sorry, I pulled this one off accidentally, and I meant 2021-010, so we
Okay.
can move on.
That's fine. We'll just check. It doesn't hurt. This is an important item. Councilmember Cease, did you have any comments?
No.
Councilmember Casagrande?
No.
Thank you. Any comments on the dais? I'll just say, I think good work. I know administration had a work session with us, and these came to Port and Commerce Advisory Board also. So since it got pulled off the consent, which was fine, I'll just say thank you guys for the extra steps. Madam Clerk?
Voting on the approval of Resolution 2021-009, Buckline,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Demas,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Casagrande,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 2021-010.
Resolution 2021-010 is establishing the City of Seward's calendar year 2021 federal legislative priorities.
Do I hear a motion? I'll move. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. And then Vice Mayor Buckland?
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to catch up here. Give me one moment.
No, take your time. Thank you. I know it's a little challenging.
I was just trying. I was trying to find the priority about the jail, just because we had asked administration to get. I think there was a number, an amount assigned from our previous city manager to the a dollar amount for the jail that they were looking at. If Stephen had any of those numbers.
I apologize. Oh,
Go on, please.
I apologize, I don't have that right in front of me, but I can certainly get that back to council. I didn't bring that with me, I'm sorry.
Maybe we can move on and then I can get it for reconsideration later, but.
Okay, that sounds good. So right now, you're fine with us moving on, and then will administration can circle back with you tomorrow?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I think,
Sorry, could I, so Vice Mayor Baclund, are you asking for the dollar amount listed in the CIP for the new public safety building as a whole, or, because I can grab my, if we want to adjourn for a 5-minute break, I can grab my CIP book if that's all we're asking about.
Would that be helpful, Vice Mayor?
No, it was just for the, we had added on at the last meeting repairs to the existing jail. And I just wanted, I know that the previous city manager and the previous police chief had talks with the state about amount of the repairs that need to be done on the jail. So that's what I was going for there.
Okay.
I'll have to follow up on that.
Okay, the clerk's raising her hand, so we'll just turn it over.
There's a bullet on the city priority list, Seward Community Jail repairs and or new public safety building. I don't think the jail is listed on the federal priorities.
Okay. So maybe I'll ask, are you looking to list it on the federal priorities, like to get a USDA grant or something? Is that why you would include it on the federal priorities?
Yes.
Okay.
But it was also on one of our priority lists,
The city.
which I'm trying to find.
It's on the city.
Yeah, thank you. The clerk pointed out that it's on, under public safety, there's just a bullet in the city, resolution, says Seward Community Jail repairs and or new public safety building, but there's no dollar amount attached.
Okay, we can move on.
Okay, thank you. That's a
It was
good,
just a small change, but
yeah, that is a good point though, because there are those USDA funds out there for different municipal buildings, so something to keep in mind and maybe touch base tomorrow. Madam Clerk, could we go ahead?
So on page 55, so under the bullet point number 4, I'll double check with you. I'll send you the info, but my recollection of this was the comprehensive jail and public safety building, and I'll have to double check and I'll send it to council, but I believe 5.6 million was the dollar amount listed in the CIP list for that.
Okay.
So
For a jail, the building?
for the
repair?
yeah.
That could be.
Okay, but I will follow up on that. I apologize, I don't have that.
okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, that was a good point. Thanks for at least putting that on the radar, Vice Mayor, and thank you, administration. But Madam Clerk, I think we're ready for a vote.
Voting on the approval of resolution 2021-010. Cease.
Yes.
Casagranda.
Yes.
Demas.
Yes.
Osenga.
Yes.
Baclund.
Yes.
McClure.
Yes.
And Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
You know, and sometimes I'm very remiss about calling for breaks. So I'll look at the dais. Can we just keep soldiering onward, or? Okay. Next on the agenda is resolution 2021-013. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2021-013 is authorizing the city manager to amend the participation agreement with the state of Alaska Public Employees Retirement System to include the chief of police position in participation.
Is there a motion?
I move for the approval of 2021-013.
I'll second.
Great, thank you. So I'll turn it over to administration.
So in 2006, when Chief Clemens was hired, he was already a PERS retiree, and under HB 242, I believe it was, at the time they allowed for a temporary waiver to be able to go back into the workforce without compromising their PERS. And so we removed that position from PERS at that time. Since his retirement, we have hired someone who is already in PERS, and currently that position is the only full-time year-round position in the city that is not in PERS. And so we're requesting to get us all back on the same playing field, put that position back into PERS, so that the new chief can continue contributing into PERS and funding his retirement. If we do not put it back in, there would be a cost associated with keeping it out, and that can get spendy. And then we would have to talk about other retirement options for that position. This is not putting in a position that previously was not in. It's not a new PERS position, it is a current PERS position. We're just reactivating the participation. and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Vice Mayor Baclan, I believe that you were the, excuse me if I'm wrong, but taking it off the consent, so I'll let you start with questions if you would like, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Terry. The reason why I pulled this off of the consent agenda was, one, there is no background information on there saying how much this is going to be, how much it's going to cost for the city. Either way, whether it is or not in PERS, I would like to see more information on it, and what the citizens are paying for this would be a lot helpful and more helpful to the public. So I motion to postpone this to the next meeting on February 8th.
I'll second.
Okay, so let's
Thank
just,
you for the second.
I think it was Councilmember C said seconded. So just checking in, so you're postponing it because you want to see budget impacts, is that correct?
Yes, as well as, we attended AML the last time we were there 2 years ago now, and there just seems to be a lot of issues with the PERS structure as it is. So without any cost implications of adding, subtracting, if there was another form of retirement or 401k or retirement benefit that could be provided that was cheaper than PERS or less of a liability to the city than PERS, because we know that contribution is rising and that stability of PERS has also been in question. So I just would like to see more information in transparency and letting the public know how their dollars are being spent.
Okay, so speaking to the postponement.
You can continue if you, I was just had
Yeah,
a
go ahead,
response
go
to
ahead.
that. So, I did run the budget numbers. I'm sorry I did not include it with the fiscal note, only because it was already included in the budget. The PERS contribution for that position is about $25,000 a year. When we did the 2020-2021 budget, we anticipated that Tom was going to retire, and so we actually put it back in the budget for this reason, because it was an anomaly that we took it out in the first place, and so we knew that when we were going to hire the next chief, we would want to put it back in. There is no cost associated from the state for putting it back in, only when you take a position out. So it's included in the 2021 budget at about $25,000 per year. And even if we were to take positions out of PERS, I know that we've talked about the unfunded liability with PERS over and over again. There's a portion that we have to pay no matter what. It's a past service cost based on a lot of different factors. So even if we take it out, we're still paying about $19,000 a year on that unfunded liability until about 2033. So yes, it costs the money. We are not appropriating any additional funds. It's already included in the budget. And even if we went down a 401k option, that is just as much, if not more expensive. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, so voting on the postponement, so that information was good information, but you're looking for some of that in writing, is that what you're saying?
Yes, please.
Okay, so let's vote. Councilmember Cease, did you have any comments pertaining to the postponement?
No, I don't. I'd like to see it postponed.
Councilmember Casagrande?
No comment.
Are there any comments at the dais? Okay, let's vote on the postponement.
Voting to postpone the resolution to February 8th. Casagrande?
Yes.
McClure?
No.
DeMoss?
Yes.
Osenga?
No.
Baclan?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Mayor Terry?
Yes.
That postponement has been approved.
Next on the agenda is Resolution 2021-015. Madam Clerk?
Resolution 2021-015 is authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with Electric Power Systems Incorporated to repair and upgrade the control system for generator number 3 in the amount of $258,778 plus 10% contingency of $25,878 for a total not to exceed $284,656 and appropriating funds.
Thank you. We need a motion and a second.
I move for the approval of Resolution 2020-015.
I second it.
Thank you. So I'll turn it over to administration.
And I'll turn it over to Mr. Montgomery.
Yes, it really comes down to a service reliability issue. And if there are two areas in our industry where you shouldn't take shortcuts, it's with safety, number one, and number two, service reliability. In this particular case, this is our oldest unit at the plant. It was built in 1973, and the control system is completely shot. The control system is vital because it makes the system run automatically, and it's adjusting fuel flow, voltage rates, and the kilowatt hour outputs. If it's not running properly, then you run the risk of not being able to power sewer should we have a significant event on our transmission line coming out of Anchorage. In fact, with this particular unit, with the outages on November 30th, we actually had 6 trips of this particular unit. How that happens is because the control system is not working, we have to have a person actually monitoring it continuously. And when you have a lot of different things going on, it's hard to stay right on top of not every minute. If we're going to keep the lights on, should we lose that transmission line coming, we really need to have this unit functioning properly.
Thank you. And then Vice Mayor Baclan, I believe you took this off the consent agenda, if I remember correctly. Oh, Councilmember Demas, sorry. Councilmember Demas, I'll turn it to you.
Thank you so much for your explanation. The only reason I actually took it off the consent agenda was I was curious if it went out for RFP on this or how that worked, and that was the only questioning I really had.
Now, in this particular case, the company that actually had a hand in building our plant is the company that we're working with. So they really have the knowledge base to come in and do this work. And yeah, I guess we could look at others, but I wouldn't recommend it. They have the knowledge we're looking for.
Did you have a follow-up question?
I do. Is that normal protocol? Okay. I guess I'm fairly new to council, so I'm just trying to educate myself as well, so
as you know, I'm
excuse
new
me.
to this role.
Only two, so code does permit it. That's a good question, Councilmember Demas. The one thing that when I talked to Corey about that issue was that, like Mr. Montgomery just highlighted, EPS designed, built, and they also did this same upgrade on Gen 3, the Gen 3 plant, I believe in 2020 for us, and so.
Yeah, it was actually generator 6. This
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
That's fine.
Thank you, yeah.
Okay.
So that's.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So just to clarify, professional services under the code, that it can be sole sourced. And that, I think that's the question you're asking, which we hesitate to do that, but it actually outlines.
I think it's cited in the resolution as well.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'll go to the phones to see if there's any other questions or comments, and I'll start with Councilmember Casagrande.
Yeah, I do have a comment. Can everyone hear me?
You sound great.
Okay, great. So if I understand correctly, I know this has been kind of an underlying factor or question for myself, is the gentleman that owns this business is also sitting on the commission for Seward. Is this correct?
Councilwoman Casagrande, I do not know the answer to that, but I certainly can find that out easily enough.
I guess my biggest question is, it just seems like this is a potential conflict of interest because I, as a council member, sitting as a council member for the city of Seward, would not be able to accept a contract to do work for the city of Seward. So I'm just curious if this gentleman is actually a representative representing Seward on a commission for our utility, how he is able to accept a contract.
So I believe that's with the rail belt. RCA, yeah. As our council representative.
Yeah, and I will be glad to work with Stephen and track this information down and bring it back.
So, yeah, so let's talk about if there's a motion to postpone and that information comes back. I mean, what delay does that do? Because I also, I think there's an expectation that our lights get turned on, but I'm sure that this wasn't gonna start tomorrow, so what would?
It would not have started tomorrow, but yes, the sooner that we can get the work done, obviously, the better. We have some capability, as I indicated, manually, but again, if we're operating it manually, it's not something that I would want to depend on for a long period of time. The real factor here is if we were to have some significant event and we were to lose that transmission line coming from Anchorage, we really need to have all 6 of those generators performing up to their capabilities.
So I guess I'll turn to folks if there is, if we want to postpone till the next meeting to get that question answered. I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I'd like to make a motion to postpone to the February 8th meeting.
I'll second.
I'll second it.
I think we all know the reasons and don't need to discuss it, so let's call for a vote.
Voting on the postponement of this resolution to February 8th. Demas?
Yes.
Baclan?
Yes.
McClure?
No.
Casagranda?
Yes.
Cease?
Yes.
Osenga?
No.
Mayor Terry?
No.
That resolution is postponed to February 8th.
So, just to administration, if we could answer that question.
So just for verification, who the owner of EPS is that person a member on the RRC representing the city of Seward? And check with legal to see if it's possible for somebody partaking in a city contract to be representing the city in any capacity? Is that correct?
That's what I understand.
Okay, I'll follow up on that tomorrow.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Next on the agenda is resolution.
Can I say something real quick?
Go ahead.
Just in follow-up to that, there's another parent company. So if that person who might be sitting on the board is associated with any of the companies associated with this contract at EPS.
Could you say that again for me, Councilmember Baclan?
There's potentially a parent company, so there might be an additional contractual relationship, like it could be a company, a subsidiary company.
Because the company is not owned by a person, it's actually managed by a management company. That's through my research today. So, not that that person owns EPS specifically, but has an involvement in another parent company organization that might be involved with this one.
So we'll just, if the attorney could take a look at that. Resolution 2021-016, Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2021-016 is confirming the special assessment role of the Gateway Subdivision Improvement District and providing for the levy, payment terms, and penalties of the Special Assessment District and appropriating funds.
I'll look for a motion.
I'll move for the approval of Resolution 2021-016.
Second.
Great. I'll turn it over to administration.
Okay, Director Wild.
In front of you tonight is one of the final phases of our special assessment district that the council voted in at the beginning of January 2020. Sorry, at the end of January 2020. This project is a part of a 3-phase project that's by a developer up in the Gateway subdivision. The original assessment was for 10 lots, and then the developer had an issue with where our lines were located, as well as the size of the main water line that they were told. So they ordered the equipment and the parts, and then had to dig down 14 feet in the cul-de-sac right at the beginning of Dunham Drive and Phoenix. That 14 feet caused a huge issue with the location, like I said previously. The developer met with the city manager at the time and discussed the options of doing an additional 3 lots to the assessment, therefore saving cost for the city as well as the developer in the future for phase 2 or 3. They had to dig up 2 sides, so basically the entire cul-de-sac there. And at the time, they blocked off one homeowner's area for at least a week and a half. So they had to walk up to their house. And if we went into phase 2, there's now a new house being built there that we would have restricted that access also in phase 2. So the city manager and the developer discussed it, came up with a cost savings. And I know that the cost is over $90,000, but in the long run, it saved a significant amount more to do these additional 3 properties. This breaks it down to 13 properties total in this assessment roll. If it's approved tonight, it will be recorded this week, and that assessment roll will be addressed to every location. The developer has until November 1st, 2021 to pay the assessed costs on each lot. If the failure to pay those, he will have to make an installment program. It's a little over $4,000 in interest, the way that it works out. The city normally carries them for about 10 years. But in order for him to sell any of the lots, the assessment is paid first. So a lot goes for sale, the assessment goes right back to the city. It's paid through the title company.
Great, and so, thank you very much. Did you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay, and then I think this is the one Vice Mayor Buckland pulled off the consent agenda, so I'll let you speak to it first, if you have any questions.
Yes. Hi, Jackie. I can't see you, but hi. I just want to thank you for your work. Thank you for the email that you sent answering the questions. That was very helpful. The one question that I'm kind of running back around in my mind is, at what point was the extra $90,000 in spending and the 3 other lots approved by who, and then now we're seeing this cost?
So the extra amount of spending was approved by the previous city manager. We didn't know the estimated cost. We just knew that there was going to be a significant cost to the fact that to locate the lines, to change that connection from an 8-inch to a 12-inch, and to extend it to the point where they could basically not have to dig down 14 more feet a second time. So that was probably, I was gone. I was at a funeral, so it was something that was handled when I wasn't in the office, and it was discussed at the time with the previous city manager.
Did you have a follow-up question, Vice Mayor?
No, thank you so much, Jackie. I just wanted to point out on this that it seemed as at that time that spending was approved by the city manager, also opening up those extra 3 lots. I feel like those things should have came before council to be approved before. I think they would have been approved. It just seems weird looking back at it now that there was $90,000 more in spending. and now it's clear that what the liabilities are if if you could tell us what the liabilities are if the contractor were not able to sell certain lots and then not make the payments.
So it's written in not only in the subdivision agreement that was signed with the developer, but it's sort of touched on in the resolution and agenda statement. The grounds for, like, we have 13 lots, he sells 7 of them, and on November 1st, he still has the 6 lots to pay for. So he would have to pay the $4,200 interest, or the overall payment would be with the 7.25% interest. If he failed to do that within 60 days of making the first payment, the city would enter into a foreclosure and take those properties.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you so much, Jackie.
Thank you. Good explanation and good point from the Vice Mayor. Councilmember Cease, did you have any questions?
No, I don't.
Councilmember Casagrande?
Yes, I do. I'm curious, if this were to fail tonight, what would happen?
The developer would not be able to sell any of the lots until agreement was made with the council. So those lots are just basically sitting there. The developer has had offers on some of the lots, but by the subdivision agreement and the assessment district that we entered into, the assessment roll has to be approved.
Do you have a follow-up question, Councilmember Casagrande?
Yeah, so if my understanding is that it's already been approved for the one amount and the 10 lots. So those 10 lots and the amount minus the additional $90,000 has already been approved, correct?
Correct, it was an estimated amount.
So if this failed tonight, then it would go back to the original 10 lots with the $90,000 left?
It depends on the council. If your wishes are that, we would have to go back to the drawing board. The infrastructure's been added. It's, the city's paid those bills. It's just that if you were to postpone it or change that scope, the original resolution was for estimated costs, so there is a cost difference, just like I said in the changing of the line from an 8-inch to a 12-inch, that's a significant cost. So those things would come back and the number would not be exactly what was approved at the very first resolution.
Did you have a follow-up question?
And then I just have, just one last question if I may. So there's one property owner that owns the 4 lots before the 1 lot that's floating out there by itself. Did that property owner help assist in putting the water and sewer into their lot?
No, ma'am, they are not included in the assessment. They could already connect where they were building their house. They could connect to the line.
Okay. There's only one house on those 4 lots?
Yes, ma'am.
Did you have a follow-up?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
No.
Councilmember Osenga?
So, just to be clear, if we don't pass this or we try to amend this or change it, then he can't do anything, the developer can't do anything to sell or to improve or to make even a house on these things, so realistically,
No, sir, he
yeah,
can't
it would
even-
just come to a halt until this is
He can't put in a
resolved.
building permit or
And
anything.
this actually was kind of there was a benefit to doing this extra $90,000 work now, simply because you don't have to shut down the road again, the cul-de-sac can stay open, the people that live back there don't have to walk 150 feet to their house. So it was actually not necessarily a bad thing. Sure, it's not great that it costs that much more, but it actually helped in the long run.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
it was a significant cost savings for the city and the developer.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember DeMoss, did you have any questions or comments?
I don't, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, I think we're ready to call for a vote.
Voting on the approval of resolution 2021-016. Demas,
Yes.
McClure,
Yes.
Casa Grande,
Yes.
Baclan,
Yes.
Osenga,
Yes.
Cease,
Yes.
and Mayor Terry.
Yes.
That resolution is approved.
Next on the agenda is other new business items. Number 4, schedule work session to discuss a city code of ethics for city officials. Councilmember Osenga and I have been working on a proposed ordinance establishing a code of ethics for municipal officers, which includes council, city manager, defining a procedure for city manager conflict of interest, and then also qualifying the term substantial financial interest. So we have a draft, and this work was started 2 years ago, working with the then city attorney and the what were they called? Sorry. Under the special ad hoc policy work group and previous city attorney. So, you know, we've kind of built on some of that. So we'd like to have a work session to take a look at it before we brought it to council, because we just think it's that important. So I don't know, it's not time sensitive. We have a couple meetings coming up. You know, I think it's a valuable effort. I don't know if we want to wait till March or if we want to pick a night other than a Monday night council meeting, which are already kind of jammed. Go ahead.
When did we set the RFP work session? I thought that was on the 8th.
So it's on the 8th. Oh, you're right. So we could do it at 6 o'clock on the 22nd?
That's what
Okay, so can we set that for 6 o'clock on the 22nd? And, you know, I just want to preface it, you know, we definitely have been working with Vienna. We looked at codes around the state, but when folks see that in preparation of the work session, you know, we're not invested. Like, don't think we're, you know, I mean, we want everyone's opinions and everyone's input. It's just getting something out there is kind of the hardest part to start. So, did you have any comments, Councilmember?
No, great work, great work.
Yeah. Next on the agenda, any objections to that time? Hearing none. Schedule a work session on February 8th to discuss the water sewer rate study, and I think we've already set that for 5 o'clock on the 8th, and then we have that second one following for the RFP to go out. Any questions or concerns with that? Nope. Now we're down to other new business items, C7, discuss the letter received from Chugachmute seeking to purchase a portion of the Fort Raymond property, and I'll turn that over to administration. And Jackie's on the hot seat again, is that how you're looking over to?
I'm here.
It's a good thing you've been doing this for a while,
Just a little bit.
And that's on page 228 of the packet for those following along. Oh, 227, and then the letters on 228, thank you.
So over the last year, almost a little over a year, I've been working with Chugachmute to discuss the possibility of purchasing some land here in Seward to build a $43 million facility. At the very beginning, it was just would the city be willing to sell property? Working with previous administration, it's always, you know, one of those options that's allowed to work on or be approved by council to sell property. I showed them a possibility of 6 different locations of city property that was owned that fit their qualifications and needs. Even at the time I showed the Jesse Lee property, but that's too small, and where it was located was not something that they desired. After doing a original land survey, meeting with their engineers, they came up with a proposal to do 3.31 acres at on the page 227, you'll see the map, it's marked in red. The location is basically right by the Parks and Rec warehouse. It has been discussed that if the Parks and Rec warehouse is able to move and that area is deemed to demo, that they would bump their building so it would just take that section also. It's something to think about. Working with Chicashmute, they have provided a lot of information and a lot of services. As you can see in their letter, you know, they are a nonprofit organization, but what they bring into the community could probably, you know, circumvent that need for property tax. I wouldn't be a good community development director if I didn't bring these type of deals and options to the council. In their letter, they requested that we give them a number by January 28th. You know, that's not doable, but it is doable if the council deems this ability for us to move forward with doing a land purchase sales agreement. And in that sales agreement, we could enter into certain contractual things that they would need to do before, you know, and one of them is we'd have to get the 3.31 acres appraised, so we knew the land value of that area. Fort Raymond is not something that we put on our appraisal list, so it wasn't done. And so we can't really figure that out. And then on top of it, they would be required to do the surveying, and their study that they're asking to do would not only benefit their land, it would benefit the other remaining 7.25 acres. Any questions?
I'll kick it off. I'm sure there's a number of questions. So, would they be expecting the city to remove any of the infrastructure, or would that be on them?
No, it would be all on them. Everything that's there, they've gone back and forth on the site. They know what's in it, you know, not only there, but what we assume is underground as far as extra utilities and lines. But they've stated as is, so they would do everything else on the property.
Councilmember McClure?
And they are aware that it's in fairly close proximity to the diesel generators that occasionally make
Yes.
noise, and this is a hospital.
Yes, that's why they bumped it down to where they have, because it basically backs up to the cemetery.
But
it really does. I mean,
well, yeah,
it,
yeah.
and so they originally we had given them off of Sea Lion. You know, we broke that up because we have those two parcels, and we talked about reconfiguration of the through street. And they didn't want that. They wanted down further by the chamber, backing up to the cemetery.
So I'll go to the phones. I'll start with Councilmember Casagrande. Did you have any comments or questions?
I know we've been sitting on this land for many, many years, and, well, not many, but years, and we have never decided whether we want to sell it or lease it. So I by no means am ready to just take this one proposal by one company and say, yeah, let's go for it, because I know there's a lot of business owners. This is prime real estate right here, right on the highway, right next to the Chamber of Commerce. That I would feel more comfortable if we as a council made some hard decisions of what we want to do with this land as far as whether we want to sell it or lease it, and then go from there and let people, you know, put it up for RFP and bid on it instead of just going forward with one person that's interested.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease, did you have any comments?
The only thing I thought of is we've been holding on to it for so long, and like Casagrande said, is that it hasn't gone out for sale to other companies either. I really think that it should be put out there to other places too.
I do share the same sentiments as Councilmember Casagrande and Steve. Also in thinking of what sales tax generating and property tax generating. And it is a really great prime piece of property. I have a question for Jackie. Were there any other places that they may have said, you know, this might be a second location that we're looking at, or are they dead set on one location?
After showing them 6 different locations and 2 of them being in that area, they chose this specifically for the setup and the design of the building that they're looking at.
And then one follow-up
Go ahead.
would be if we were if it were to move a little bit more south towards the Chamber of Commerce, would they pay for the demo of the barn there?
Warehouse. We could talk to them about it. We didn't discuss that. It's just one of those things that they knew that that building may or may not be demoed. You know, there's a lot of contention with that building, and so I know that that would be a task. It's not one that I'm not willing to go for, but it would be a task.
I'll look to the dais. Councilmember Osinga?
I would just say that I would be in favor of moving forward somewhat in this direction, at least telling them that we're looking at attempting to come to some kind of agreement. It sounds to me like they're willing to do a whole bunch of work that might not necessarily be under their purview, but they're willing to do it. And I think that, as has been said before, we've been holding onto this property for such a long time that sure, the sales tax might be an issue, but I think if you're going to bring in 24 people to work this thing, and it becomes an actual a hub clinic, where, in other words, this is not just for the city of Seward. This is going to actually service the people that are in the communities, such as Port Graham and Nanwalik, Titlik, any of the 7 regional native group, tribal groups out there, or villages in the outer regions in this area. So it's not something just for our town. It's actually going to be a hub. I think that if it brings people in to visit not to visit, but for their health appointments, then I think that you're going to have just a boom there. Plus, they're going to be using our utilities. So.
And can I add to that? One of the things that we spoke about in lengths was not only are they providing a service to everyone in Seward and everyone outside of Seward. We talked about the airport. We talked about the Coast Guard coming in. You know, they work really closely with the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. So that's also, you know, when you look at the overall long term, you know, I don't look just 1 year, 5 years. I look like 10 years in the future. There are quite a bit of federal funds that can be helped with not only the hospital that we have, but the hospital that they run to help those services generate, you know, the possibility of helping the airport. They know that and that's one of the reasons that they picked the Fort Raymond area, was because it was closer to the airport and they could provide those services. So I know that it's something they're looking at, you know, and it's something that we just don't have the ability to do those things, so.
Councilmember DeMoss, did you have some comments?
I think that if we're going to be selling land, I wonder if the right thing to do is to decide what to do with the land and then open it up for whoever may be interested, including these people. Just because they came to us and it sounds like a good fit doesn't mean it's the best fit, because we don't know what else is out there, I guess. So that would be my only thought, I guess.
So did you have
just that I think it sounds, I have no problem with exploring it with them myself, because as Councilmember Osinga pointed out, and it would be a big deal. It would bring people, it would bring more infrastructure, it's, I don't know that we've had any expressed interest in purchasing land out there so far. You would know that better as well.
In the last 3 years, I've had 2 people, and the facilities that they were bringing, one of them was told that they would have to lease. It was previous administration, before this last administration, said that it would have to be leased. And then last year, I was given a proposal to purchase a portion of the land, and then COVID happened and they dropped out.
Just a question.
Go ahead.
When we do decide to sell off city land, how do we normally approach that? Do we advertise it, or is this something, okay.
So I wish I didn't do a good job about, so I always carry with me, and I wish I would have thought about this before, the Municipal Lands Inventory and Management Plan. I mean, the last update was 2014, but in here, it has every piece of land leased by the city, like what the current use is, and then what the description is and what the recommendation is. I mean, it hasn't been updated, so clearly the recommendation for that piece of property I'm just looking for. But when it talks about general provisions, like Seward City Code states that we have to, unless it's found to be otherwise in the public interest, may not dispose of real property interests without an appraisal of the fair market value. Once that fair market value is determined, the property may not be sold for less than, but we could always sell it for more than. And also for disposal and sale, we would, after conducting a public hearing, City Council may approve the negotiated sealed bid or public outcry auction sale of a public property. So there are some processes outlined in code. I'm torn because a bird in the hand is very attractive. Their project sounds wonderful. I think it would be a huge benefit to the community. But I also want to make sure that we follow our city code, and we make sure that if we're disposing of a piece of public property that is held in our trust, that we're disposing of it at the highest rate. Because another recommendation in here is that we have established, one of the recommendations of previous councils was to establish a land bank where funds acquired from the sale of surplus property accrue to a special account for acquisition and other needed lands. So what we wouldn't get from lease with this property, which we've only gotten $1 for 100 years,
Right.
because it was leased to a government, so we were getting underfunded for that. But if we sell it, we need to make sure that then, if we do end up leasing it, we would get that every year into our general fund. So we're giving that up for, a one cash settlement, and then if we sell it to a private business, it would be ongoing property tax, or there's also other benefits if it's a nonprofit. So while I don't want to give up the bird in the hand, I think we also need more information and suggestions on how to proceed. Because the other thing is, we don't necessarily want them to just take this piece and cork us off that there's no way to develop or sell this to someone else. So the way this is currently configured, if they only want this piece and we end up wanting to sell or lease where our warehouse is on, that person doesn't have highway access.
Oh, man.
So if we sell that to a
Ma'am,
private...
they do have highway access
No,
through Aspen, off of Aspen.
But what I mean is like for signage,
Right.
or like, they have highway access, but maybe not highway visibility potentially. So I don't know, like I said, I think it's a great proposal, I'm really excited about it, but I also want to make sure that we're doing what we need to do. So I don't know if there's any, like, God forbid we say another work session, or,
Sounds like it.
I don't know.
And I just want to point out the other thing, they stated in their letter, this intensive study that they have, it would be something that, would benefit us in the future for the remaining portion of Fort Raymond. It's something that is a bone of contention anytime I talk about Fort Raymond, because we know that there is a spider web of utilities and lines that run through it. Their study will not only benefit them, it will benefit the city for future use on the Fort Raymond property and future possible leases or sales, whatever the city decides.
Did you have a?
I was just gonna say, so you're talking about study, but they'd be exposing things that are on the other 4.5 or whatever, how many acres there are sitting there, so
Yeah.
there'd be things done for that, or that would actually benefit us as far as discovery.
And one of the things, you know, when we do a replat, if you guys chose to sell the property, they would have to enter into a replat, and during that replat, before it even happened, we could incorporate what you want to do with that other 7.35 acres, might be 2.5 acres, something like that. It's just, you know, there's that line where we can incorporate how we want the remaining, or, you know, if it's not accepted, I know that they have another site in another city to go to. And it's just, you know, it's one of those things, it is that.
Yeah. And that's just what I was gonna say. I think that, I think it is important to analyze this process, but I also think that it's important to keep the hook in this and, you know, see if we can make something work, because it sounds like a great opportunity for Seward.
And there's nothing saying that, you know, if the council approves tonight to move forward with the ability to sale, you know, in that land sale agreement, there can be conditions. I mean, you can add the conditions into that land sale, and if they choose not to do them, you know, the city's really not out anything, but they may do studies and other things that we haven't even thought of.
Councilmember.
If we decided to, as you say, just move forward with this, then what we really should do very soon is hold a work session with public input on the rest of the property, like we started to do pre-COVID and pre-everything that's happened, and get on with that, and maybe figure out what to do with the rest of it. This is just a portion, it's a third about of the property, right? And it's doing us no good now, just sitting there.
The other thing is if as we move forward, you know, letting other people know that this property is being looked at for disposal. And, you know, that might bring other opportunities out. So I'll turn back to the phone. Vice Mayor Buckland, did you have any comments at this time? I know we've been discussing here in the council chambers.
Yes, this question is for Jackie again. If they were to take that little corner or that portion, would they be using would that block off highway access from any of the other 7 acres around there?
No, sir. The highway access for that parcel, Diamond doesn't go all the way through. When you're on that street, it cuts off. It was like that with the Fort Raymond property in general. But access is available off of Sea Lion, as well as, you know, when we did the rezone to auto commercial, those options of how to get off the highway were a big question. You know, that's a DOT thing. Anybody that builds there is going to have to work with DOT to even get their entrances off the highway.
Did that answer your question? Did you have a follow-up?
Yes, just a follow-up. So they still would currently have to work with DOT to get highway access?
Yes.
Right now?
Actually, no. There is a cutout. If you're looking at the map, there's a white line that goes across the highway. There's actually a drive access right there. So that's already been cut.
Oh, and that's where Lear Road comes out?
No, the Aspen is right there between the Parks and Rec building, and then right past Aspen where that white line is just a cut in. It's how they access to do their RVs, I think.
Oh, I see.
Previously.
Fish cleaning.
Yeah.
Fish cleaning.
And I'll go to Councilmember Cease on the phone so that you have an opportunity.
Okay, I thought that where that is where the utility not the utilities, that instead of being on Sixth Avenue, that it's gonna be built there. Isn't that, because they need that Aspen Road to be able to bring in equipment.
Madam Mayor, to Commissioner Cease, there has been major talk over the years about where to move the Public Works building, where to put a public safety building. And when Fort Raymond property was brought forward, you know, to rezone it, it was even talked about then. It's been listed in the CIP. You know, like I said previously, I wouldn't be a good director if I didn't bring all of these options forward. One of the things I look at is the city prepared and ready to build a public works facility that could cost $40 million, I'm not sure, you know, but these days and age of the cost, and wait to sell the property after cleanup of where Public Works is currently, meaning that that property could sit open for another 5 to 10 years, because it has been on your priority list for years.
So in other words, you're saying that they should maybe build a new building on Sixth Avenue?
No, I'm not saying that either. I'm just saying that the Fort Raymond property has been, over the years, I mean, in 2014, a study was done to put a Public Works building down where the Hemlock campground is. And the Public Works director at the time was like, no, I don't want it there. So, you know, the city puts in money for studies are done, and then we don't move on them. So there is a lot of what ifs. Is the city willing to go to bond and build new facility for the city? Or is it wanting to sell property and build for other portions of our community?
Well, I don't know, but I just feel that if we should have maybe a discussion on if this is the property that they wanted, then it's been talked about before, why haven't we done it before?
And one of the other things is there's still over 7 acres that would be available. And if you wanted to build a Public Works building there, it would butt right up to where your electric warehouse is, and you still have the ability to build a Public Works building on the Fort Raymond property.
Can they have road access for all of their big equipment?
Well, the electric facility does. It would be a plating and
So, you know, I think, you know, I don't disagree that this is an important conversation, but in the context of moving this, I don't know if we want to get mired in finding a location for the new Public Works building, but I think it's a valuable item to bring up. So I might check with Councilmember Casagrande. Did you have comments about this item?
Yeah, I know that I didn't make it to the last work session, and scheduling work sessions is a pain in the butt, and I apologize. But I think that it is in the citizens' best interest to hold a work session to decide if we want to sell the land or if we want to lease the land. And I think that's the biggest question that sits before us, because I've been through this already with past administration, and Jackie's right. Past administration said, no way, we are not selling anything. We are only leasing that land, it's not an option. And so now somebody's coming along saying, we got big money, we'll buy a bunch of land, and we'll pay a lot, and we'll do all these great things, but how do we know that there's not other people out there that feel the exact same way? And I strongly believe that this chunk that has been parceled out is hands down one of the best pieces of property in Seward. You have the property where the Cup is that's comparable, and the property over between Dickgrass and Hemlock that's comparable, and those are both priced at really, really high prices. And so my question is, those should both be really great locations for this same thing too. And there's just a lot of questions. And so I think instead of looking at this, we should just reply to Chugach Mute and tell them that we're going to hold a work session. We're going to figure out what we're going to do with the land. And we're really excited to work with them. And we want to work with them, but we need to follow our process because we're the board.
I agree, and I think having a work session is a great idea. So at that work session, I think we'd be looking at like overviews of what that parcel's made up of, size-wise, access points, how much they're looking for, but maybe a suggestion from the city how much we would look at. Start talking to them about leasing. I know they really want to have it sold.
I've already talked to them about leasing, they will not
Not
lease.
an option.
Not
Okay.
an option, not with their federal loan that they've got, or the federal funds they have, they cannot lease.
Okay.
Are we talking about a work session just for this piece of land?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think since we have, someone interested, I mean, I know there's a much larger conversation about all the city property, but we will definitely get mired in making a larger decision when we have maybe something specific to this piece.
Okay. Could we get an overall picture of the land usage from the city? And what we're, like,
Yeah, it would be
what we're
great to
leasing,
have-
what we have available, everything?
I have that and 5 different layups of what or what community development has been trying to work on for the Fort Raymond property.
Yeah, but I
Different
think you're talking about,
configurations.
I don't know if we still, this is out of date, but this land management plan is gold.
It is,
Yeah.
and Madam Mayor, just so you know, that has been brought up in planning and zoning plans on reviewing and updating.
Yeah, so this is from my previous time on council.
Because I feel like I would be able to look at this
Yeah.
piece of land a little bit better if I know the whole, what we're dealing with.
So, let's,
Can I just say, they gave us a specific date of January 28th. So if you guys want a meeting, I think it needs to be a work session. I think it needs to be sooner than later.
Yeah, but the problem is administration has a lot to produce. So I'm happy to have a work session anytime, but there's a lot of work for you guys to do to gear up for that work session.
I already have it.
Oh, you're ready to go. Today's the 25th, February 1st, Monday, February 1st?
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
can do that.
Monday, February 1st, 6 o'clock. Councilmember Singh.
And I just have to disclose, I used to be an alternate board member for Chugach Mute, and I represented this area. So I have talked to a certain number of the council members up there have talked to me, and stressed that they were really wanting to get some kind of moving forward is what they were trying to get. They're trying to get something. So,
They
but
just want that, yes, we are gonna work with you
Right.
6 o'clock.
type of response so that they can give
Yeah.
it to the federal.
yeah, they were pretty.
So,
They just want to know.
in preparation for that, the more information you can provide, the better. So again, it doesn't have to be discussed at that February 1st meeting, but if council members could maybe get any additional city property information, how much we're leasing out.
That's what
what's
I
our-
would like to see, just to educate myself.
So
or
I
if you
can,
could show me
I
where
can
to find
just
it.
include the city land-owned map. I will include that, but I just want to confirm that this work session will be just to discuss that 3.31 acres.
Yeah, let's talk about a title for it. What's the title on this agenda statement?
Madam Mayor, if I may?
Yep.
This is Councilmember Casagranda. I would like to discuss the whole Army rec camp land, what we're doing with
Air
it.
Force.
Yeah, the Fort Raymond
I know
property.
there's other,
Yep.
I just want to know what other departments were thinking. I know Parks and Rec has talked about things there. Public Works have talked about things there. We got the animal shelter there, so we know where that's at. But I just want to see, I want to hear all of administration's input on the land. So I don't want to focus just on the 3.31 acres.
Yeah, I agree. So just pull out a little bit. I don't think we want to pull out to include all the city property, but
Just
that
the Fort Minor
compound.
property.
Yeah. So, and that would include like access points, like I think the city sometimes does a disservice if we're cutting off access points or restricting. Because if we're talking about public works, I'm certain the schools do not want equipment access coming and going from Sea Lion. I don't know how safe that would be because I dropped kids off there. It's pretty busy already. So, all those impacts. So that's a lot to do in a week. Councilmember Casagrande, is that what you're looking for? Just of the whole area, pulling back just a little bit?
Yeah, so just to clarify, the land that we received from the Air Force, right?
Yeah.
I mean, basically, I'm looking to decide whether we're going to sell the land or lease the land and access points and, yeah, exactly, of that land. Not all city land, just that.
Yeah, but I think even more so, because it would be good to know where the property is for the animal shelter.
The animal shelter's on the other side of the, it's not near there. And then just as a reference, and I'll bring it up at the work session, the Parks and Rec property goes over into Legion Cemetery property by about 5 feet. So all that would have to be adjusted too.
Yeah.
One of the options was to discuss with the Public Works Department. They were concerned about access if they were to build there. And we talked about putting a road back there that would, so they could come in off of Aspen and go. I mean, there's multiple ways that you can put access points, so I can bring all of that forward on Monday.
And it would be good to know zoning, square footage of that whole parcel.
And can I also include that parcel on the corner there of Sea Lion, because that's also city property?
Yeah.
At one point, we tried to get them to reconfigure over to that area.
Right. Yeah. Okay. But yeah, I mean, definitely let them know after this that we're looking at it, and we're sorry we're running a little behind of what they need, but
Yeah,
we
I'll
have
call
to.
them tomorrow. And maybe I can get
Okay.
them to join in on
Councilmember
that work
Cease?
session.
Yes, can we have that before Monday though? The stuff on it so that we can look at it?
I will try extremely hard to get it to you before the weekend.
Okay, so administration's gonna shoot for Friday.
Friday or Monday?
Administration's gonna shoot to bring the materials, get the materials out to council by Friday for the Monday meeting.
I'm gonna try, but
Try.
I'm already doing a packet for planning and zoning that's on the 2nd, so. But I will get, I've got most of it.
What time is that meeting on the 1st then?
6 o'clock Alaska Standard Time on the 1st.
Thank you, that means 10 here, huh? Okay.
Sorry.
That's all right, I made the choice.
Okay, so does administration have enough information? Thank you, good. Thank you for that. Thanks for bringing that forward and yeah, thank those guys. Next on the agenda is informational items and reports, December 2020 City and Providence financials. I'll check if there's any comments on what was included in the packet. Vice Mayor Baclan? On the City and Providence financials, are there any questions or comments?
Oh, no, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Cease?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Casagrande?
No.
Okay. And none on the dais? Next on the agenda is citizen comments. Madam Clerk?
We do have a couple of folks to call, and the first one is Carol Griswold.
Hello, this is Carol.
Hi Carol, you're with City Council and you have 5 minutes for citizen comments.
Thank you so much. Dear City Council and Administration, I'm very disappointed that last year's legislative priorities for critical long-term airport improvements were not continued or even discussed on this year's list. Some council members may recall this was such an important community issue that the resolutions were actually repairing and restoring the existing runway 1331 in order to accommodate larger aircraft and provide effective disaster response, and constructing a flood damage control project to protect the airport runways and property from flooding are essential long-term projects to solve this long-lasting problem. I'm pleased that Resolution 2021-006 major typo was corrected from the National Park Service to the Chugach National Forest. However, you still have Stephen Sowell as the acting city manager, which is not true. And I wish you had considered my other suggestions for clarifying the fees, which is always the thorny part of any contract. But nonetheless, it's a huge improvement over the initial one. Thank you so much. I am concerned about selling Fort Raymond property without further public involvement, consideration, and a plan. The city must take care of its needs first, such as a new Parks and Rec maintenance facility, new public workshop, satellite fire station, and a better site for the animal shelter. Compliance with Chugach View's January 28th deadline is too short a notice. City land at Fort Raymond is not their only choice, unless they expect to get a bargain from the city as opposed to a private sale. There are several prime frontage properties currently for sale between Safeway and Dincraft Road. The city would still benefit from their presence in Seward without prematurely disposing our valuable city land. A work session is a good start, but cannot possibly be expected to resolve this issue. Thank you for all your hard work on all these many varied issues. Good night.
Thank you. Okay, next is Becky Dunn.
Hello.
Hi Becky, you are with City Council and you have 5 minutes for citizen comments.
This is Becky Dunn inside the city limits, and I wanted to just exchange my comments about the airport a little bit. I touched bases on safety. I literally saw a big wing plane, double engine, try to land to do a meta-flight and had to turn around during a flood. That was actually for Rena and with the use during the crystals. The dad, and so I'm not sure what they did about that, but to the judge focuses on safety, but also if that airport was taken better care of, and not just the winter, but the flooding address issues, the river, we could have commercial flight service in and out of town. I had somebody I'm contacting that is actually interested in getting one started in town, and they have an existing one elsewhere. And I have a comment from Roland Dixon too. He actually would be interested in, he has a lot of guests from outside come up, and he said a flight service from Anchorage could be good just for the novelty alone, especially for the scenery. Priced right and good to carry luggage, it could actually be a really good thing. Right now, a lot of people fly up to visit him. I'm looking for his comments. They fly to visit him, and they fly to Anchorage, and then they take the train to it. So they're already not driving. And another thing that isn't really touched is that it really cuts down time to fly versus driving to and from Anchorage if you have to get to a doctor's appointment or you're just coming here instead of renting a car. And let me see. Also, comments about the road. Personally, I think their work on the highway for snow removal has been pretty lax at best in several miles either direction at turn and getting past. I also have a lot of comments that I can't repeat from drivers. I was heavily on a couple of different
ship us from Anchorage, and the driver came to work that they had never seen. And now they were about to give us his comment about, he said, oh, here we go. Please ask them to get SPRB to provide active recreation for our community using and RC car events are great. But why won't they take care of the second leg for skating? What about the waterfall trail? It needs more gravel, and our kids need facilities to get them out in front of in front of their screens. And another comment about icy sidewalks inside city limits, and they're actually singled out of business. I'm not going to do that. And that about wraps it up. Just more on the skating that first leg and the safety and desire to have an airport and benefit. I also comment about, which is where it's going to be asked for people who listen to the meetings that aren't signed up, that they could comment that there was a couple people that really want it to be open for the public comment before the sale of the property we were just discussing next to the chamber. So more interest in public comment period. And thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, and I will be doing this after every meeting from now on, because a lot of people listen to the meetings that make the comments today, but do not know how to Zoom. Whoops.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else signed up?
No, ma'am.
Is there anyone on the Zoom raising their hand?
No.
Okay, thank you. So, response to citizen comments and administration and council comments. I'll start off with administration comments. Acting city manager.
So just to clarify, and I will send a copy of Norm's delegation of authority for while he was out of state. So it was necessary because Norm was traveling outside of the state of Alaska for him to delegate his authority as the acting city manager in his absence. So I'll scan and send a copy of that out to city council. That's the only comment I have.
Great, thank you. Administration.
Oh, Director Wild.
Jackie Wild.
I just wanted to comment on one of the citizens' requests about property that's available from Safeway to Dick Graff. Just so everyone knows, city property wasn't the only property that I showed there was availability of 3.831 acres. So I am working for everyone.
Thank you. Next, so now we're going through council comments. I will start with Councilmember Cease. I'll lead off with you for council comments.
Well, I guess I don't have much to say. I'm gonna say good night. I'm gonna go to bed.
Oh my goodness, thanks for sticking with us. You're a trooper. And then our other battler in the field, Councilmember Casagrande, I'll go to you next.
I have no comment, other than, again, I'd just like to apologize for my absence in the last two work sessions. I did not anticipate my technology going wonky as it did, but I am officially, as of an hour before this meeting, back online and have found a computer and back to the real world, so thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Demas.
I would just like to thank Stephen for helping us through this RFP for the forensic audit and helping us understand what a good process would be for it. I would like to thank Jackie for all the information that you brought to us with this possible land purchase. I think that's exciting, so thank you for communicating with them and bringing that forward. And that's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Osenga?
You know, Corey, thanks Corey for all your work and effort in the electric department. Robert Rang and Craig Ambrosiani for your reports, and everyone be kind out there. Please take care of yourselves and wear a mask and social distance, and just everyone be safe out there.
Great, good comments. Thank you. Councilmember McClure.
Okay, I wanted to thank council for and the mayor for the resolution on the airport. My son is a pilot there, and I'm pretty well versed on what's going on. It occurred to me with the discussion of the ice skating rink that when I was out there today, that would make a beautiful ice skating rink, that whole area where the helicopter would land. It is just really spiffy. And it also speaks to the lack of maintenance by DOT on just the road access there. I know a lot of people go out there just to walk their dogs, so they're aware, but it's just hideous. I'm excited about the long trail. I posed the question earlier, would anybody really want to hike the 500 miles on a trail from Seward to Fairbanks? And our mayor said absolutely yes, so I'm going to hold her to it if that ever happens. And thanks to Corey, I think he's done remarkably well with our electric department. We needed some help and we got it, and I'm pleased with that. And I'm also really grateful to the city for the work on the Mary Lowell gravestone. And I'm looking forward to having a big celebration at the cemetery sometime in June or so. We might even incorporate that with a modified extension of our solstice cemetery tour on the 21st. It's a possibility. I also it's hard to say this, but I think tonight's meeting sort of speaks to the need for us to eventually get back together to a council where we're all sitting here present, because Zoom is not perfect, and phone lines are not perfect. No offense to the people not here, but it just does create a lack of continuity. And when you're not physically here, it's just really hard to sometimes work through issues. So I'm optimistic that eventually we'll be COVID-free and all off our emergency declaration and all back together. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Baclan.
Hi, sorry, it's very late here as well, so I want to thank the medical, everybody in the medical community today for their reports. Sometimes in Alaska we're not very lucky because we feel like we're left behind, but 20,000 people signed up to get their vaccines today in Hawaii. My grandparents are not able to get their vaccines because they're not over 75, but they're waiting to get them. So for the people who in our community have got them 65 and up, I'm really thankful that we're able to get those for our most vulnerable population. And our providers are doing a great job of getting that out there. I will miss the Seward Community Foundation presentation tonight. And I guess they're giving away more than, I don't know how much they were. Last year they gave away $120,000, and I think it might be over $130,000 this year. So thank you for their board and all the hard work that they do. Thank you for the rest of the council members for the time and effort that they put in here, as well as to administration for getting all the information to us and reaching out and trying to stay on top of all the questions. And that being said as well, the more documentation and background that can be given to the public and that can be given to us as council members are always helpful. So any more background, any more justification and numbers provided to us are very helpful. Thank you. Be kind to each other and have a good night.
Thank you. I wanted to also thank Corey for his hard work and his time here, and we are excited to have him working on the power sales and those higher level negotiations. And welcome to Rob. I mean, clearly from him tonight, he's already well aware and in charge of that facility, so that's nice. I want to thank Parks and Rec for the drive-in movie nights. I'm hearing a lot of good things, and actually took kids to one of the drive-in movie nights. It was pretty cool. I hope that the public heard in the Chamber of Commerce reports that Seward spends and watch for information on their Facebook page, but the $35,000, that grant that, from that COVID money that's gonna parlay actually into $100,000 being spent at our local, shop. So that would be another good, shot in the arm for our economy, so I hope people take advantage of that. I wanna thank, Robert and Craig for coming and giving a presentation here. You know, as folks have already mentioned, I was on a call with other communities around Alaska, and they're having trouble getting the vaccines out to seniors. There's been some hiccups, and the CHC has really taken hold of that, and you know, people call and set that up. So just a good system in place, and thank those guys. You know, I'm sure they're tired, and so to have this ramp up again is just really helpful. And then this might be a tad off topic, but you know, with that sewer lagoon being open and frozen, I'm hoping that in the spring when the work's completed, that you know, we can even maybe have a new contractor come and inspect all the final work, like see what we have going on there, you know, and maybe just a second opinion on that system after all the work's completed. So it just, you know, I know COVID and weather, I understand all those things, but maybe when the work gets completed, if we could have a second look at that. So with that, we are adjourning at 10:45. Thank you.